Good afternoon, amazing law nerds. It's September 28th. I can't believe that it's the end of September already. Like it is the end of September. I can't even believe it. Today, we have lots to cover. But first, I want to say, replay crew, thank you. I appreciate you. Everything will be timestamped down below. Today, we are going through the Taylor Schabusiness sentencing. We are doing this a day after she was sentenced. A lot of you probably know what the result is. I think the value in going over the sentence is not just ultimately what the judge is going to sentence her to. In this case, there's not a lot of leeway. The judge kind of has to do what they ultimately did. There's not a lot of options with this first degree murder charge in Wisconsin. There's not really, the judge doesn't have a lot of discretion in what's going to be sentenced here. I don't think that's the point for me. Like, I'm not waiting with bated breath going, is she going to get life in prison without parole? That's what's going to happen based on these charges and everything else we saw at the trial. That's what's going to happen. So with this, the reason I wanted to go through the sentencing with all of you, and I hope me explaining kind of my thought process helps, the reason I want to go through the sentencing with you is not just to close this case out, because we watched the second part of this case and then we watched the NGI trial. It's rare that we watch a criminal case that also has a not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect trial going on with that. So because she was found to not be because she was found to not be not guilty, because she was found guilty without any mental disease or defect, she was held responsible for what she was doing. So there's limited things that can go forward, but watching that part of a trial is something we don't cover very often and don't see very often in high profile public trials. And then hearing from the victim's family, I think, is always important, and hearing how the attorneys try to argue and what options there are. But I also think it's interesting when you have witnesses on behalf of the defendant at sentencing. That is not something we see a lot. We do not see defense witnesses often at a sentencing, and we're going to see that today. So I wanted to go through those things because I think that the legal nature of this case is very interesting, but it's also why I didn't cover all of the beginning of trial, because the facts of this case are horrific, gruesome, and just so far outside of what happens in the world that we had a lot of other things to do. So that's why we popped in at this for kind of the defense case and the NGI, the same way we did in the Brooks case. The prosecution's case in chief went forward. I hopped in for the defense case and the sentencing. So I think that gives everybody the ability to choose how many details of the case they want to engage with. For those of you that don't remember the Schabusiness case, she beheaded somebody who she was being intimate with, who had been a friend of hers since high school, in his mother's house. So we're going to see her coming into court today in a spit hood, which means she must have been getting out of hand in the custody or in transport. So we're going to do that today. You guys ready? I think we're ready. I think we're ready to do a sentencing. You know how I feel about live court. Oh, and then we'll do some housekeeping in a minute. So law nerds, good to see you. Thank you for having a chat with me yesterday about yesterday's podcast. Thank you for engaging with me on the community tab. I've been in the comments all day on the community tab post, seeing how productive you guys have been. Some of you have remodeled your whole ass bathroom by yourself, including putting in a new sink. I mean, the level of productivity. Some of you have said active rest is what I need to do. I need to be productive in healing, resting, and not doing. I need to be productive in being. Some of you have gotten outside, even though it's really tough, either to walk with your kids or just to get you out of the house. And a lot of you have gotten all of your tasks done. Law nerds, you've gotten dishes put away, you've gotten laundry put away in the same day. Come on now. Y'all are productive AF, and I am proud of you. All right. We're going to roll this intro and we're going to get going. Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it. So, law nerds, thank you for sharing not only what you're going through in your lives, but what you're getting done and how you bring me along for the ride. I always love hearing where I get to come with you to, whether we're going to the doctor or the dentist, whether we're having ultrasounds or recovering from surgery. I love to just hear where I'm coming along with you. I always imagine the law nerds being like, come along, Emily, we're going to go do this. And I'm like, yes, let's. I'm just going to chatter at you about whatever case we're talking about, which is kind of how it is in real life too. It's like, come along, Emily, what is happening today? Okay, well, while you're getting your dishes done, while you're getting your laundry done, this is what we're doing today. And I love it. So thank you so much. It just, it really does make my day. And you guys, it's been a week. So I appreciate you. I do. And like this week has been like a week on like the big level of a week. It's been like a week, but also on like the small things, it's been a week. I know there's going to be a full moon. We're coming out like even my Pokemon Go Sleep is fighting with me this week. I'm like, I need one thing to work smoothly, please. My tech was fighting for me. I was on time today and ready to stream. And every time I pulled up the sentencing, it would, in my stream, go completely black. So you could see none of the video. I was like, this is not going to work. Okay, y'all. Let's pull this video up and get into this sentencing. I've reminded you of the facts of the case. Procedurally, here, let's go through a quick procedure. We're going to swoop it up and go to procedure real quick. Procedurally, she went to trial on the guilt phase. Did Taylor Schabusiness commit this murder? The jury was like, yeah. The next phase, that same jury came back for a 1 day, few witnesses. It wasn't that many witnesses. In just 1 day. Hey, did Taylor Schabusiness know that what she was doing at the time was wrong? Or she did the act, like the physical thing. She did the thing. You've convicted her of doing the thing. But did she know she was doing the thing? Was she acting out of some sort of mental disease or defect that causes her not to be legally responsible for the thing that she did? And the jury came back saying, no, she knew what she did, and she does not have a mental disease or defect issue that would cause her to not know at the time that what she was doing was what she was doing, or know that it was wrong. So the jury, she now gets passed along to sentencing with the judge. That's what we're here for today. Wisconsin does not have a death penalty. The only real option for sentencing is life without the possibility of parole. I don't even know on these charges if she's up for 25 to life, but we will figure out. That would mean she would serve 25 years and then have the possibility of parole. So I think life without parole is the only option the judge has, but we'll find out when the lawyers argue. But the option of spending her sentence and a lower sentence in a medical facility versus jail is off the table because of the jury's verdict. So hopefully that helps. Jay McCoy just got accepted to grad school on work's time. That is, you've like life hacked all of the things. Congratulations. You're like, have job, getting degree, job pays for degree. Fantastic. And congratulations. Chevy said, I miss a lot of the lives since starting a new job, but being replay crew while decorating for Halloween has been my go-to. Thanks, Emily. Well, I'm glad you're here today. I saw a lot of you say that the time change today worked out well for you, and I'm glad that it does. Nerd Natasha, I love this. Was this the case where the doc was like, I don't need tests? Yes. This was the case where Spiegel was just like, MMPI, I don't need tests to tell me that woman's crazy. I mean, And you could see that doc on the stand being like, a girl, I just looked at her. She said she heard a train. And I was like, yep. And the other doctors were like, boo, she's fucking with you. This case, this is exactly what this case is. I don't need fancy schmancy tests. I also was really surprised to find the forensic clinical psychologist to be so stigmatizing in the way that she talked about mental health. It was really bananas to me. It was really bananas to me, where she's like, she's crazy. I don't need tests. It was, oh, I hated it. I hated it. So yes, this case. It's this case. Kaylin, congratulations. The law nerds are going to overwhelm you with congratulations in the chat. Congratulations as your family grows. That's so exciting. All right, let's focus on things that are way less pleasant than that. The I don't need no stinking test doctor. Yeah, she was wild. You guys are like, the pointing was just too much. Yeah, the pointing was too much. Did I hear correctly? You'll be releasing Law Nerd University merch. You did. You continue to hear that correctly. It's coming. All right. We are going to the only full feed of this from Law and Crime. So thank you, Law and Crime, for providing the entire feed. Court TV was like, here's an hour. Bye. Thanks, Court TV. If we need to see the defendant more, I will shrink my face. But for now, we're going to speed this up just a little bit. There's no sound in the courtroom yet as everybody's coming in. As the judge takes the bench, I will slow this down from the normal time. Sentencing days can be tremendously emotional. We have had fights break out at sentencings between families in the audience. There can be outbursts during sentencing. People can try to bolt during sentencing. Sentencing can be tremendously contentious. I hope that this is not. I very much hope that this is not a contentious sentencing. I am guessing. This is pure speculation. I am guessing her lawyer's like, I don't know what you did to end up in that mass, but please don't do it while we're in court. And you're going to be sentenced today. There's not a lot of options, but we do have your witnesses. Your dad's going to talk. This is who's going to talk about you today while you're here. You have the opportunity to talk if you want to. This is what they're going to say. So when I was working in juvenile court, we had a juvenile actually get out of the courthouse and bolt. And it was so funny because some of the male attorneys were like running after them. And the rest of us are like, I mean, there's sheriffs out there. Like, I mean, I don't need to go. They get a gym at work. Like, they're meant to do this. I'm not chasing anyone in my work clothes. So yes, Laura, the golf course, juvenile court, that juvenile court was crazy. But yes, I don't think the juvenile knew that when you ran out of the courthouse, you were going to end up in the middle of a golf course, because why is there a juvenile court facility and a golf course in the same, like you all drive in the same way. Anyway, so the juvenile ran out onto a golf course. It's like, eventually you're going to wear yourself out, but that's fine. She is not wearing a grocery bag. She is wearing a spit hood. Probably because she was spitting at the deputies, at the lawyer. This is a defendant who attacked her lawyer. So let me speed this up a little bit. This defendant attacked her lawyer, and the lawyer stayed with her. I mean, this defense attorney is a trooper. Oh no, that lawyer left. That's right. That lawyer left. This is the new lawyer. The prosecutor still looks like James Corden. But it happened. It happens. And again, they're all rising for the judge. She knows there's not a lot of options going on here, and that can create a unstable situation in court.
Okay, I'll call.
Yeah, the spit hood's a thing.
998, 20 CF 1393, 22 CF 3.
Cleopatra, we disbanded the text crew. you got to download the app. The link is in the chat, lawnardapp.com. That's where all the notifications are going. The last text I sent out to the text crew has that information.
6-3. State appears by Assistant District Deputy District Attorney Caleb Saunders. The defendant is here in person.
His name is not Caleb Saunders. Objection.
And with Attorney Freilich. We're on the court's calendar for sentencing hearing today, as well as sentencing and revocation on those earlier files.
Sentencing and revocation on her earlier files. I'm going to boost the audio a little bit on my end. Sentencing and revocation on the earlier files means she has other matters that she has not been sentenced on yet. So whatever other cases she has for whatever other crimes she's been convicted of, those are all going to get sentenced. If she's on probation, which it sounds like she is, her probation is going to get revoked formally and she'll be sentenced. And it's normally she'll be sentenced concurrent to what's going on with this, because she's going to get life and then they're going to give her whatever many years on the other cases running at the same time. So everything's just done. All the cases, all the judges have her off their docket.
Is the state ready to proceed, Mr. Saunders?
Okay. I'm sorry, Judge.
Is the state ready to proceed?
We are.
Mr. Freilich?
Yes.
Okay. I've got a copy of the pre-sentence investigation.
This still sounds low to me. I don't think I have it all the way up at 600. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can bump it just a little bit more. It's not as bad as some of the other courts, but it still sounded a little low.
That was ordered by the court. I have a copy of the independent pre-sentence investigation report that Mr. Freilich had submitted. I've had an opportunity to read both. I've also got some submittals that were submitted by Mr. Freilich. So let me start with the pre-sentence investigation report that was ordered by the court. Mr. Saunders, did you get a copy of that?
I did.
Did you get a copy of the other documents, including Mr. Freilich's independent evaluation?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Freilich, did you get a copy of the PSI that was ordered by the court?
Yes, by the Department of Corrections, Your Honor. Yes, I did.
All right. Any changes or corrections?
No, I can tell the court that I did review that with my client this past Friday at the Brown County Jail for several hours. We went through the entire document, talked about it, talked about the recommendations that the Department of Corrections for the state of Wisconsin was making, and there are no changes.
All right.
I appreciate this defense attorney always making a record.
How the proceeding is going to work. Does the state have any witnesses?
Talk to my client
at the sentencing hearing today.
No witnesses. There is one victim impact statement that would like to be orally addressed to the court, but no witnesses per se.
Okay. Mr. Freilich, do you intend to call witnesses today?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Can you give me a sense of how many you intend to call?
Sure. One would be my client's grandmother, Esther Coronado. She resides in Temple, Texas, and I believe she would appear via Zoom with the court's permission. I have Dr. James O'Donnell here from Illinois, the toxicologist, pharmacologist. He would provide some testimony about the meth use and the effects of that. Valerie Armour, that's my client's cousin. She's here from Ohio with my client's great aunt.
Nerd Natasha, did you bring enough for the class? We want to go with you. There's only like 7,000 of us in here at the moment. Sounds fun. Have a great time. The witnesses are to argue for less time, to let the judge know more about the defendant, to give the judge circumstances. It's not going to help in this case, but also because the defendant has a right to it, and the defendant might want to hear what people have to say.
Roberta, but only Valerie Armour would provide testimony. And then I have my client's father brought here from the prison system via writ of habeas corpus to provide some testimony, and his name is Arturo Coronado.
The dad testified in trial as well.
My thought is, as long as we have witnesses, we should probably take the witnesses first, rather than once the witnesses have all testified, then we can.
The dad hated the
husband,
Schabusiness's husband or ex-husband.
That would mean, although we typically start with the state, that would mean we would turn to you, Mr. Freilich, because you're the only one with the witnesses. So if you want to call your first witness, you can do so.
Okay. Before I do that, Your Honor, if I may, I did receive the independent pre-sentence investigation report. It's lengthy. Contains an attached alcohol and other drug assessment. I reviewed that entire document, the evaluation and the report, with my client last evening at the Brown County Jail. We had a lengthy conversation, again, to talk about this case. And with that said, I would call Esther Coronado, my client's grandmother.
Okay.
The sheriffs are talking about transport. The judge is like, why can I hear that? What's happening?
I believe, yes.
Okay, so I'm seeing that on my laptop.
Her father and her
I'm not seeing it on
husband are in custody. I don't know if she and the husband were ever formally married or if they're divorced, or the father referred to him as the husband. No, she does not have a claw clip in her hair. She has what looks like a scrunchie holding up
Okay.
some of her hair.
So, are you Miss Coronado?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is via Zoom
What I'm
from
going to do
Texas.
is I'm going to place you under oath, and then Mr. Freilich is going to have some questions for you, and the prosecutor may or may not have some questions. But I'm going to start by asking you to raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the
So
whole
we've got
truth,
the
and
judge,
nothing but the truth,
the
so help you God?
witness, the prosecution, and the defense.
Very good. Mr. Freilich, the
All
witness
on
is yours.
screen.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Ma'am, you are Esther Coronado.
Yes.
And what is your date of birth?
January 1st, 1942.
Okay. And are you married?
Yes.
Are you married to Juan Coronado?
Yes.
Okay. And where do you live, ma'am?
Temple, Texas.
And do you know Taylor Denise Schabusiness?
Yes.
Can you see her
She's
in,
my granddaughter.
what's that?
She's my granddaughter.
Okay. Can you see her here in court?
Yes, I do.
For those of you
You've
just
known
coming
her,
in, the defendant
all of your
is
life, correct?
in a spit hood
Yes.
to keep her from spitting
what
on
is her
her
father's
attorney
name?
at the court, at the deputies.
My father's name?
No,
He did?
no. Taylor's father. What's his name?
Oh, Arturo Coronado.
That's your son, correct?
Yes.
When Taylor was growing up as a young girl, did she live with you in Temple, Texas?
No. No. When she was growing up, we were in Illinois. And that's where, I took care of her.
You would take care of her when you lived in Illinois?
Yes.
Did you help care for her after she was born?
Yes.
Did there come a time when you moved to the state of Texas?
I don't know
Yes,
why any of this
it was in
matters, counsel. It's
20
sentencing. No one's the
2004.
the prosecution's
2004?
not going to object to when she
Yes.
moved to Texas.
And is that when you moved to the Temple, Texas area?
I don't think you need this much foundation,
And no,
counsel.
we moved back home. Yeah, that's Singapore.
Did you ever live in Cotulla, Texas?
Who cares?
Yes.
Kind of fast forwarding,
Yes,
when
please.
your granddaughter, Taylor Schabusiness, got a little older, did there come a point in time where she gave birth to a baby?
This is what matters.
And what's the baby's name?
Mateo.
And where's Mateo right now?
He's with me.
He- The child lives with you in Texas?
Yes.
So you're caring for Taylor's child, correct?
Correct.
How old is the child?
He'll be 2 in October 3rd.
That breaks my heart.
Was there a point in time where your granddaughter, Taylor Schabusiness, went into some kind of therapy or counseling or treatment program and then got released and then came to live with you before the baby was born?
I believe so.
Okay.
I
And-
do not know about what happened in Wisconsin. I only know that she wanted to have the baby with in Texas with me because I was the only family close to her.
Okay. And so she had the baby in Texas, correct?
Correct.
Was that in like October of 2021?
Yes.
And when the baby was born, tell me a little bit about Taylor Schabusiness. Was she interacting with the baby? How did that go? Can you tell me about that?
Yes.
Her
Well,
wanting
she
to
was
be with
excited
her kid is
when
not
to-
going to
when
help.
she found out that about the baby. I know that when she came down, she wanted to be close to somebody, a relative. And so when she had the baby, she was very happy and loved that baby. But it didn't last very long because 24 hours later, CPS came and took the baby away.
When you
So
say CPS, you mean Child Protective Services?
Yes,
What?
Okay, please continue. We're going to say some more.
yes. I was going to say that after that,
Was she on drugs
it was
at the
very
hospital?
hard for her. And they had
She might
told
have been.
her that, well, I was there with her when they came and took the baby away, but they said I couldn't bring him home because she was here at home. But she said she would rather go to a shelter so I could bring the baby home. But that didn't happen. She left from the hospital, went to a shelter, but the baby didn't come home to me until a month later.
Okay. So at the present time, you have the baby with you, correct?
Correct.
And you and your husband, Juan, are caring for the baby, correct?
Correct.
You sent me some photographs of Taylor Schabusiness, your granddaughter, with the baby after the child was born, correct?
Correct.
You sent me some pictures of her rocking the baby, kissing the baby's head, interacting with the baby, snuggling with the baby. Is that fair?
Yes.
Counsel?
Those pictures of her in the rocker, and that's when they would allow her to go, because he was placed with another family before he came to me, and they would allow her to visit with him with the permission of the court, and the people that were caring for that baby at that time would bring him over, and she would only have a few minutes, an hour maybe with the baby, and that's she would spend with him.
Okay.
This is not going to help.
After the baby was
sentencing.
born or prior to the baby being born, did your granddaughter, Taylor, go out and buy clothes for the baby, onesies, outfits, things of that sort?
Yes, she did. We had everything prepared for the baby here at home, and
Debbie,
her grandparents,
the
her grandfather
defense
and aunt
wanted to call
sent her a
witnesses
crib.
under
We had
oath
clothes, everything
to try to
waiting
help
for
the
the
defendant's case.
after she was released
It's
from
not
the
going to happen.
hospital, but she did not come home because CPS would not allow it. We couldn't bring the baby home either. He was placed
It's not going to help.
with another couple, and they told her she had to have to live someplace else, so she went to a shelter, and she was there at a shelter, so I would be able to bring the baby home with me.
Okay.
So she never came home with me after the baby was born. From the hospital, the next day, she went to a shelter, but we did not bring the baby home because they had placed him with another family.
Okay.
So
But-
we had.
But right now the baby is with you, correct?
Get counsel.
Right now, the baby is with me.
And the plan is
In
likely
England.
that you're going to have permanent custody or placement of the child with you and your husband, right?
Chat.
Well, we're adopting him.
Okay.
We're adopting. Taylor gave up her rights so that I could have a Mateo, because we didn't want him going to anybody
foster
else,
care.
but to stay in the family.
Sure. Okay.
Chat,
From your
is anyone
observations of
confused? Is
Taylor
anyone
Schabusiness with the
confused
baby, did it appear that
that the baby lives with the grandma? Counsel has asked the same question like 4 times. I'm sorry to get annoyed so early on, but this isn't going to help. It's sad. It's sad for the baby, but the fact that she had a baby and then was loving towards the baby until CPS took the child is not going to help his case on sentencing. Okay. Emily, you chose to cover the sentencing. You did that. You did this. You did.
that
you
she
wanted-
was,
we
connected
wanted
with
to
the
do
baby,
this.
or can you give me any feedback on that?
Yes, she was. She loved her baby. She prepared the things for the baby. Because she thought he was going to be coming home. She was setting up things for him, but he never got to come home, and she didn't get to come home either. Because right from the hospital, she went to a shelter, and we came home, but we didn't bring the baby with us. He didn't come home to us till about a month later.
Okay.
Yes, counsel, we've heard
some other
this.
questions for you. Do you have a close connection with Taylor Schabusiness, you and your husband, Juan?
Yes,
I think you sent some pictures of you and your husband, Juan, with Taylor Schabusiness in the middle. Is that right?
correct. Yes,
You both love each other very much. Is that fair?
yes. We went to visit her in Wisconsin. That's where we took the pictures.
The
'Cause she
counsel, they're
had,
doing this because
her
they
own
love her.
apartment. She
Okay.
was doing well, and we went to see her, and that's when we took the pictures.
Okay. When she was living in Wisconsin, was she working at a cheese factory, Saputo Cheese? Do you remember?
Yes, she was.
Counsel,
She was
You're-
working there.
you're
She
on the
was doing
Zoom.
good.
two, counsel.
So after that, I don't know. We communicated back and forth. She would call every week, and then later on, I didn't hear from her for a while until she told me, that about the baby, and she wanted to come and be with me so she could have the baby. And I told her that would be fine. So she came down to Temple.
Okay. She graduated from high school in Texas, correct?
Correct.
And that was
All
at
of this
Cotulla
came
High
in.
School?
Yes.
And I looked at some
During
reports
the
and records
testimony.
that she may have graduated in 2016. Is that about accurate?
I think so. I don't remember, but it probably is correct.
And when
Phil,
she
we'll
was
talk about
attending
this in a
Cotulla
little
High
bit.
School, did she live with you in Texas?
Actually, no.
Yes, she
she
did.
went to high school in
How long
Texas.
did she
Great.
live with you before she
Fantastic.
graduated from high school in Texas?
Oh, maybe about
I don't.
a year
None
and
of
a
this
half.
matters.
And during the time that she lived with you for a year and a half,
The defense
prior
and the
to her
prosecution get a
graduation,
chance to argue sentencing.
did you
Sometimes
note any
sentencing is set.
problems with drug use
If
or
the
other
options,
issues?
like in Idaho, are
No.
life without parole or the death
Um,
penalty, well,
I
the jury will decide that.
No,
But like in
Okay.
the Murdaugh case, the
And
only
when
option
she
was,
lived with you in Texas,
you
was
know,
she involved
life
in,
without parole.
any
That was
kind of
it. The
sports or
judge had
activities at all?
nothing else they could do
Soccer,
based on the
swimming, or anything
charges.
like that?
No,
There are
because it
sentencing
was,
hearings sometimes to
almost last
argue if
year.
there could be
So,
the difference between 25 to
she-
life
she
and life
just
without parole,
worked,
to argue for
she
the
got
defendant to have an
uh,
opportunity at some
several
point to get
guys
out,
there.
to tell the judge
Just
more about the
working
defendant,
really
to humanize people, to
very
share other
good.
circumstances in aggravation or
It's a small
mitigation.
town, there's not
Um,
that much.
So the attorneys
work
get to
there,
be
so,
heard, the victims get to be
she
heard,
would
defense
work at
witnesses get to be
different
heard.
places.
So it doesn't just go to the judge and the
Um,
judge is like, sentence. It's less formal in cases
Do
that
you know if she was
aren't
on
as
any kind of
consequential.
medication?
It can
at
go much
all when
faster.
She lived with you in
But this is a
Texas before she graduated high
serious
school?
case where like life
I-
without
I
any
believe
option
so,
to get
but
out is on the
I
line.
really don't know what kind of medication she was on.
But where she went to high school is not going to matter. The judge already heard this.
you
with all the
talked
psych
to some-
reports.
Probation agents or professional people from the Wisconsin Department of Corrections when the pre-sentence report was prepared, correct?
Mm,
You were interviewed?
I don't- now?
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing,
Oh, okay.
Jennifer.
When this report was done, did you get interviewed by someone from the Department of Corrections?
No.
Okay.
I got interviewed by
Excuse me,
Like
Mr.
three,
Prosecutor Horton.
persons
You're
that
on the
said
Zoom
they-
call as well.
they,
We can
work
see
with
your
you, but
face.
I don't know
He wishes he was playing
if that
Pokemon
was
Go.
true or not. I don't. But I was interviewed by three. Someone that said they worked for you.
Okay. Your son is Arturo Coronado, and when he got divorced, did that have an impact on your granddaughter Taylor?
Well, when he got divorced, my granddaughter has been on her own for a while.
Okay. When Taylor's mother passed away in 2009, did that have an impact on Taylor?
Yes, it did, because she had just lost her mother, and a year later, her father remarried, and the person he married had children of her own. So she was kind of I would say, didn't feel, well, she felt like she lost her mother, and now she was losing her dad because there were other kids involved in there.
Your son got married to a lady named Katie after Marla passed away, correct?
Katie?
Yeah.
I don't know what Katie has to do with it, but
Yes.
Okay.
are there
And
rules?
did
Yes, but
Taylor ever talk to you about the fact that she didn't get along with her stepmom?
it's going to be looser
Taylor always kept
because
everything
the
for
judge is the one
herself. She
parsing
never,
it, not a jury.
said things about people. I
So
know
it's
that
going to be treated very
she-
lightly.
didn't feel comfortable. She felt like it was too soon after her
Because
mother
the judge
passed
can
away,
weed out hearsay and
and,
things
and her
like that.
father remarried, and she felt like abandoned. And then here, she was in a home where there was 3 children, but one of them I know that lives with the father, but 2 of them were living there, and her and her brother lived in the basement, and so she just from a nice home.
Yeah,
that she
I'm
had,
surprised she
and
doesn't
ended up
have
living
a
in the
waist
basement, but
chain on
like I said,
because
she never
it looks like she can
complained
still
to
raise
me
her
or
hands and
said
she's not waist
anything,
chained.
but
I don't know if she is,
went
but
to
no, she's not
visit
waist
them,
chained.
and I
So
could
no, I
see
don't know why. Unless
that, you know,
it's not a spit mask and she's sick and that is all the option. But yes, I agree with you. If she's not waist chained and she can pull it off, it doesn't stop anything.
she felt misplaced, but now other siblings.
Okay. You're aware of the criminal charges and the convictions that resulted after the
I
trial in this
imagine
case,
they're not
correct?
even going to cross-examine the grandma if they're the prosecutors. Is she waist chained?
Yes, I think so. I don't know
It's not
too
tight
much
enough.
about it,
If she
but
can still reach her hands
yes,
to her face, then
I know that.
it's not restricting her that much.
They found her guilty and they want her to spend her life in jail. And I think that she has gone through a lot in her short time of being here. She has gone through a lot. There's a
Ma'am,
lot of things that she has to, losing her mother, her father remarried, then her find herself pregnant, and losing her son, and then losing her brother. So that's a lot for a young person to take in.
I don't
And
doubt that Taylor
ma'am,
Schabusiness has had a hard life.
Your granddaughter, Taylor Denise Schabusiness, she's 25 years old.
Yes.
Mr. Beast
She
is
had a
also
brother,
25 years
Arturo J. Coronado, AJ Coronado, correct?
Correct.
And is it your understanding that he passed away or he died in a motorcycle accident on or about July 1st of 2022?
Correct.
That's
right.
awful.
Did your granddaughter Taylor talk to you about that after it happened?
No, I know she was very heartbroken, but she was there in Wisconsin. She had lost her baby. She was locked up, and her brother, and that was very hard for her.
Okay. You sent me some pictures of Taylor with her brother AJ, correct?
Yes.
There's a picture of the two of them together with AJ having his hat on backwards. They appear to be happy.
I'm
Is that
actually
fair?
glad they're doing
Yes, that's correct.
the defense witnesses first, because the
There
victim
was another
impact
picture where
statement is going to be, look,
AJ, Taylor,
the victim was living his
and
life.
your
And
son
then she
Arturo were all
murdered
together
him.
as well, correct?
So
Correct.
yeah, it's
Did they all
unfortunate. She's had a rough
get together
life,
with you
a
in
really rough life.
Illinois, or was that in Texas? Those pictures, where were they from? Were they from Texas or?
But also,
No, those were pictures when they lived there in Wisconsin.
Okay.
The ones that the ones with the baby were here in Texas, but the ones with her brother and her father, that's when they were living there in Wisconsin.
Okay. Are you a close-knit family, or have you been a close-knit family in the past?
Yes, we've always been very close. I took care of Taylor when she was born, but then we left for Texas, and so when I left her, she was, I would say, maybe about 7 years old or 8 years old, and I would try and see him at least once a year. But then, as the years passed, we weren't able to travel that much, so I hadn't seen her for a while.
Do you know if your daughter visited other family members in Ohio with in the past with AJ?
I believe so.
yep.
When they were young, their mother used to drive to Ohio and take them. But I do not know if later on, as they got older, if they did or not.
Do you know if Marla Coronado would take the kids, AJ and Taylor, to Ohio to visit cousins or aunts?
Jennifer,
Yes, she did.
Jen,
Okay.
She would.
Jennifer. It often goes in the other order,
her
where the
dad
victim
and
impact
her
statements go
brother
first, and
and
then the
sister
defendant makes a statement,
in
or
Ohio.
not, or their lawyer makes a statement.
Your granddaughter
opposite,
Taylor, is
'cause
she
she's calling
close
them
with
as
your husband
witnesses,
Juan,
not
with
just
Grandpa?
making statements.
Yes.
He wants
she
the
is.
court to take this under
She's
consideration
very close with
as
her
evidence,
grandfather.
sworn evidence.
When Taylor was living with you in Illinois, and then later on in Texas when she was going to high school at Cotulla High School, did she listen to you and follow the rules and all of that?
She did listen to me and follow some rules, but sometimes she wouldn't. She wouldn't. I mean, she wanted to do something, but like I said, she wanted to go stay by friend's house. But
Defense counsel,
I
do you
would
have
say,
children?
no, Dad, let them come and stay.
Did they follow
here
your
with
rules?
you.
I
So,
mean, sometimes
but
yes,
she did
sometimes.
bring a friend of hers to stay overnight by us. Like I said, Taylor only lived with me there in Texas for maybe about a year and a half until she graduated from high school. Then she wanted to get back to Green Bay.
Okay.
This is from yesterday, Julie.
Fair to say that you've always had a
Or no,
close relationship
Tuesday.
with Taylor, both you and your husband?
Why wasn't this done
Yes,
during
we
trial?
have.
These are sentencing considerations. So a lot of these factors aren't relevant at trial.
You heard about
Some
and
may
found
argue
out
they're
about
not super
her
relevant now.
involvement with drugs, correct?
But some of what her grandma's sharing is not relevant to determine if she is guilty of murdering the victim, Shad. What happened that night, what police saw, those things are relevant. This comes in as a sentencing consideration because they're going to ask the court to mitigate the sentence, so to bring it down. But the defense attorney is, I think, doing his job and is like, look, you have family that's willing to testify, we'll bring them in.
Yes.
A lot of this came in at trial through the medical doctors.
I found out later on because she used to call me, and then for a while she didn't get, she wasn't calling it anymore. But I try and always try to keep in touch with her. But then afterwards, I found out that she was pregnant, and she asked if she could come down and have the baby over here by me, and I said that would be fine.
Which I think is smart.
But she didn't have anybody else
for her to say, I need
she
help.
could turn to over
I
there.
just wish she would have done it
So
more.
She wanted to be by me, so I told her to go ahead and come down.
Okay. Now, she's been found guilty by a jury of first-degree intentional homicide, felony, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. All felony offenses, all as repeaters. For the first-degree intentional homicide conviction, the Wisconsin law is such that the sentence is life imprisonment. And the issue really is whether she should be given the opportunity for extended supervision or possibility of parole or not. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any input on that issue?
So for those that were asking, and I saw a few questions earlier, and I had said it right at the top, just for a reset for all of you that just came in, this is Taylor Schabusiness. Those are the charges she was convicted of. The judge doesn't have a lot of range for sentencing. It is either going to be life without parole or 25 to life, which means you serve 25 and then it's up for negotiation and conversation. So he's really trying to argue that she's 25 years old, that if she receives mental health treatment, if she receives, whatever she might need, stays off of drugs, turns her life around, there is an opportunity for her to actually serve 25 years and potentially get out of custody in her lifetime. For older defendants, that's not always the case, even with the 25 to life sentence. So her attorney is trying to fight for her to get a chance to someday be free from custody. So that's the options. Life, parole, no parole.
Well, I do. I believe that she has gone, in her short life, she has gone through a lot. And like I said, first losing her mother at the age of 12. Then a year later, her father remarried. And there she felt misplaced there too. Then she went on her own and was doing well. And then all of a sudden, everything started falling apart for her. I don't know what happened in between.
The dad knows.
We weren't communicating then.
He thinks it's the boy.
But then after she found out that she was pregnant, she wanted to come and
the dad has a lot of thoughts about that.
She wanted to have at least a relative of hers close by, and we were always very close since I took care of her when she was born until I left Illinois in 2004.
Would you agree that your granddaughter, Taylor Schabusiness, needs some drug treatment, some counseling, all of that?
I do. I do believe that she does need some counseling.
I mean, does anyone not
and
agree with
some
that? We
help.
all
She
agree
needs
with you.
help.
All of us agree with you.
Do you believe that she has?
I just also think she's a
Good
danger
qualities?
to society.
Yes,
What are
I
they?
believe. She's a very caring person and also very trusting. She trusted people that said they care for her, and actually always she was. What can I say that she always ended up getting hurt because she trusted people thinking they cared, but she's always have had the problem that wherever she goes, people just use her and she thinks they care, but they don't. They have disappointed her.
Do you believe that your granddaughter Taylor Schabusiness should be given the chance to possibly be on parole or extended supervision sometime in the future?
I do believe. I know that she committed a crime, and I know that they want her to pay for it, but I believe that she should have the opportunity to come back to society one time and be with her son.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions from me.
Any questions, Mr. Saunders?
No.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Were you intending that she was going to stay on the Zoom, or
No.
you can certainly
Go to YouTube.
disconnect now if you want, ma'am, or you can remain on. But having said that, Mr. Freilich, do you have another witness?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. It's totally up to the court, but if in my opinion, if she wants to stay on, I would ask the court to consider allowing her to do that.
The court said that was fine.
Okay.
She can stay on if she wants.
Okay, thank you. Next, then, I would call Valerie Armour.
Um,
Next witness. Oh gosh, couldn't hear any of that.
You have to get the microphone on.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Is it on? Okay. My name's Valerie Armour. It's spelled Valerie. Armour spelled Armor.
Okay, the witness is yours, Mr. Freilich.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. You are Valerie Armour,
Yes, I am.
and
What do
where do you live?
I live in Dublin, Ohio.
Can you tell me what you do?
Are you married?
Yes, I'm married.
What's your husband's name?
Brian Armour.
Why does it matter?
Do you have kids?
Yes, I do. I have 4 children.
Are you employed, ma'am?
Yes, I am.
Yesterday, my youngest said, families that aren't too big,
Where do you work at?
I work
have
at Sun-
7 kids, because we were talking about the fact that we only have 2 kids, and she just said 4 kids, and I was like, families that aren't too big, like 4 kids? And he's like, no, like 7 kids. I'm like, you have no concept of what that means, so I'm just gonna let it pass. But she's like, I have 4 kids, and in my mind I was like, not too big and reasonable. 7.
behavioral health. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Anyway, I thought it
Yeah,
was.
what do you do
I
there?
thought it was funny that she was like,
I work
yeah.
inpatient psychiatry with adolescents and adults.
How long have you worked there?
I worked there for 5 years.
And tell me your educational background, just briefly.
I have 2 degrees from the Ohio.
The reason they're doing, I don't think you should ask expert witnesses about whether they're married. It doesn't matter, unless of course you are some football dude who's dating Taylor Swift, and then very much it matters who you're married to. But I don't think for expert witnesses it matters where you live, or do you live in this state? Yes. I don't think it matters where you live. I don't think it matters if you're married. I don't think it matters if you have kids. Just ask for their training and experience. I'm interested to see her testify.
Ohio State University. My first degree was a bachelor's of nursing in 1996, and my second degree was master's of science, nurse practitioner in psychiatry in 2016.
Do you know Taylor Denise Schabusiness?
Yes, I do.
Do you see her in court today?
Yes, I do.
She's seated to my left.
She's
Yes, she
acknowledging people with the
And,
eyebrow raise.
Are you related to her?
Yes,
She's
I am.
Can you tell
Hey.
the court how you're related?
So her mother is my first cousin. Marla is my first cousin, and Taylor's my second cousin.
This is fair,
Are
K-Rab.
you also here with your mother?
Yes, I am.
What's her name?
Roberta Connor.
And does she live in Ohio as well?
Yes, she does.
You came here together?
Yes, we did.
She is
And
family.
what's
I was
the
so
relationship
confused
with Roberta and Taylor?
because
Roberta
It
is
seems
Taylor's
like
great aunt.
she should
She
be
is
an
the
expert on
older
this case.
sister of Taylor's grandfather.
If you're the cousin and have this background, how much do you freaking hate the test lady? It was like, I don't need no stinking test. More. You hate it more. You hate it more.
When Taylor was growing up, would you see her periodically in Ohio? Would she come to visit in Ohio?
Don't
Yeah,
know
she
how
would.
that works
Tell me a little
well.
bit about that.
One of the couple visits that I remember in
winged
particular,
hedgehog.
one
Does
was
that
in the
seem
summer of 2001
small?
when we were going through my grandfather's house. He had passed away in May 2001, and we gathered as a family to get together and go through belongings. Taylor was 3 at that time, and AJ was a baby.
And was there a picture of Taylor when she was 3 in a
Look, the internet asked, before we get into what Taylor Schabusiness was doing when she was 4, the internet asked essentially, what is the equivalent for do you think about the Roman Empire? And then Taylor Swift was like, let me go to a football game. And now we have the answer.
maybe a little skirt with a red top and tights?
Yes.
And was she standing by you?
Yes.
Oh, hello,
she was.
Rob. I see the chat
And who
saying
else
hi.
was in that picture? You remember?
Hi.
Marla was standing
Good to
next to
see
me on the left, and then my cousin was standing next to Marla.
Okay, and where was that picture taken?
That was taken in Grove City, Ohio, in my grandfather's house.
Okay.
It'd be very weird sitting
So-
at your cousin's
Have you had a connection with
murder
Taylor
sentencing.
Schabusiness over the years?
Yes, I have.
Did she come to visit you on other occasions?
Yeah, she came down for a family reunion in 2013 that we had when she was 15.
That was with your daughter?
Yes.
Was that the picture that you gave me of you in the middle, your daughter on one side, and Taylor Schabusiness on the
Rob,
other
is it
side?
because
Yes,
he
it
made her
is.
a friendship bracelet? Why are
And
you
where was that
invested?
That
Picture
was taken at a
Teasing.
park, I
Everyone's
think on the
invested.
east side of Columbus, where we had the family
Invested.
reunion.
Inside a pavilion?
Yes, inside a pavilion.
And describe Taylor at that time in 2013 from what you recall.
She
Jesse, I
appeared to
think it would be a
happy
conflict.
15-year-old girl. She had a great sense of humor like her mother. She appeared to be well adjusted at that time. I enjoyed visiting with her and asking her how her life was going. And I'd always told her I'd be available to her after her mother passed away.
It's interesting that she said at that time.
Did
She
you know
appeared to be
about the losses that
well-adjusted
she
at that time.
suffered in her life? The loss of her mother, Marla, in 2009, and the loss of her brother, AJ, in July of 22?
Yes, I did. I grew up with her mother. We were very close as children. We spent holidays, summer vacations, and weekends together at my grandparents' house in Grove City, because when I was a child, I'd moved to the East Coast. But we spent, weeks together in the summer planning our future lives, playing with Barbies. We were very close as children.
Did you talk to Taylor about her feelings and how the loss of her mother affected her?
I did. I remember at Marla's funeral afterwards telling her I would always be available to her if she wanted to know more about her mother. I certainly would be available to tell her what she was like as a child, and I would be available for her the rest of her life if she needed anything. I lived in a different state, but I've always made myself available to her.
I think you gave me a picture of, tell me if you did, of Taylor and her brother AJ when they were younger, maybe with Taylor eating either a pulled pork on a bun on a plate, or you remember anything like that?
Yeah, that was after her mother's funeral. We were at my cousin's house in Hilliard, Ohio for the family gathering. We had both sides of the family there. Art's family was there and my family was there.
Would you agree that Taylor always had a supportive family, either in Ohio or Texas or Wisconsin?
Absolutely.
And from the context that you had with her growing up, did she appear to be a happy young lady, happy child?
She did at that time.
You came to find
She's
out
very
about
precise
the
with
charges and the
we're gonna
trial
make
and
sure
the
that
convictions,
I limit
correct?
to what
Yes.
I know.
You're aware of what she's been found guilty of, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you're aware of the maximum possible penalties and all of that, correct?
Yes.
And all of that.
At least as to the first-degree intentional homicide charge, the statute indicates life imprisonment with either the possibility of extended supervision or parole or not. You understand that?
Yes, I do understand that.
Do you have any comments for the court to consider on that particular issue?
I do have some comments about that.
Okay, go ahead.
So Taylor, she comes from a loving family. I know her to be loving. I know her to have empathy. She's capable of love. I believe she has suffered immense trauma in her young life.
I don't doubt
First
that.
with losing her mother in 2009. Anytime somebody loses their mother at any age, it's a great trauma and a tragedy. So she grew up without her mother. And then from what I've heard, living with her stepmother and her father, I had always heard that they had slept in the basement. So
Who slept in the basement?
that Taylor and AJ had slept in the basement when her father remarried. We had always heard that in the family. In 2019, we suffered more losses in the family. Taylor lost her grandmother in May. And then in September of 2019, we lost a cousin who was 27 to a motor vehicle accident. That would have been Taylor's first cousin. At that time, at that funeral, when I spoke with her father and AJ, she was doing well. She was working at the cheese factory. Her father, Art, was very proud of her at that time because she was doing well. And then I found out, had lost touch with her during the pandemic and found out about what had happened when we found out AJ passed away July 1st, 2022. That's when all this came out. So she lost her brother to a motorcycle accident. So our whole family has experienced a lot of loss, and Taylor has experienced a great amount of loss. I'm a mental health professional. She has a trauma history, and I believe she has mental health issues. I'm hoping as she goes forward, she can get the help she needs, and with some deep introspection, be able to work on her issues. And I'm here to be as much as I can with her.
I mean,
on her next journey of
it's
life.
hard. A lot of people deal with a lot of loss. I appreciate her cousin
Do you have
saying,
any comments
"I'm
on whether
here
she
to
should
help."
be considered for the possibility of parole or extended supervision?
I would like her to be considered for parole. I would like her to get a chance later in life to get to know her son. I think that would be very important to her, to be able to spend some time with him in person as she gets older, and other family members who are still around. Definitely.
Do you agree that Taylor needs drug and alcohol treatment?
Absolutely.
Do you agree that she needs mental health counseling?
Absolutely. And she needs to deal with her extensive trauma history.
Do you believe that she may need medication management?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
I think at this point,
Is she a lost cause?
I think I'm going to get to that in a second. The lawyers, is she a lost cause? I think that she is answering these questions both from her experience, but also as a family member. Like, this is what she needs. I'm wondering if the defense attorney is asking this of this witness to help Taylor Schabusiness realize that she needs to accept the help that is offered to her in custody, because they're not going to make you do it. You have the choice to do it or to not do it, because it's not going to reduce her sentence or anything like that. I wonder if he is trying to call these witnesses so that Taylor Schabusiness will actually listen to them. The more that he talks, the more I'm wondering if this is him as a lawyer trying to get through to his client versus him as a lawyer actually thinking that the judge is going to give her 25 to life versus life without parole.
She's not a lost cause.
Is she a monster?
No, she's not a monster.
She needs to be punished, correct?
She does need to be punished for what happened, and my family we regret what happened, and we apologize to Shad's family for what has happened.
I mean, it's not your fault.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any cross-examination from the state?
No, thank you.
Okay. thank
Yeah,
you.
the state's not going to cross-examine any of these witnesses.
I'd like to call Arturo Coronado next.
I wonder if it will also help the client be like, look, you have family that is still here. Talk to them. Get the help that you need. Michelle, I might agree with you. Her defense attorney did all he could given the case he had to work with. I think he did. And I think the defense attorney has truly tried to represent his client very well and to actually help her. He seems like he very much wants to help her. Allison said, just got back from a trip to Maine and pulled an EDB, booked hotel for Portland months ago. Went to put the address in and it didn't come up. Booked a hotel in Oregon, not Maine. I'm sorry, Allison. I hope it all worked out wonderfully and that the universe surprised you with something that was even better. But yeah, I get it. I get it. And I've done it. I wonder if they are going to be bringing her dad out from custody next. Lori said, please tell Rob he better be doing voice to text while driving or I'm going to rat him out to his mom. Is he driving? Don't text and drive. Rob Robin said it takes a special kind of fortitude to provide people like her with a robust defense. I hope he has a therapist. He's going to need all attorneys need therapy. Criminal attorneys particularly need therapists who understand trauma and secondary trauma.
I'm
but
going to take the video off of you, Mr. Saunders.
He's been very
There's still
compassionate.
Video running, however, for the grandmother, so you can't see her, but she still has the ability to look in. Okay.
Okay, Your Honor.
Gingy said, "Hey, Law Nerds, joining from the Caribbean. This case is so heartbreaking. It is. What she did was awful, but if it was meth-induced psychosis, it's so scary and sad. I hope she's able to find purpose in prison. I hope she is too. Could she be sent to Texas jail so the kid could visit? Some states will house. It's not like the federal system where you kind of get wherever in the U.S. You're generally within the state system. Some states will house inmates at other facilities that are not as crowded. I am not familiar with how crowded the prison system is in Wisconsin. So in California, it was not uncommon if somebody was sentenced to state prison for substantial sentences that they could be moved out of state. Meant to say app, YouTube, and email on earlier chat. I'm on Patreon as well. So I live in the EDB multiverse now. Outside the box, we were trying to make the multiverse easier with the app. Did they say why CPS took the baby right away? They didn't say, but I think it's probably because she was using methamphetamine while pregnant. That in all of the context we have makes the most sense. Grandma is not helping. I think grandma is just trying to get through at this point to Taylor Schabusiness. Why doesn't the state have witnesses? Is this normal? The state doesn't really need witnesses. The presumption is with the state on this one. The state's asking for life without parole based on the evidence of the crime. That's a lot. And the state will have victim impact statements. And that's appropriate. All right, this is the father. The father who hates her husband, I think she's still married to, and the baby's father.
A-R-T C-O-R-O-N-A-D-O.
Mr. Freilich, the witness is yours.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coronado, good morning. Your daughter is Taylor Denise Schabusiness, correct?
Correct.
And when she was born in Evanston, Illinois.
Yes.
And she lived with you and your late wife, Marla, there for several years till when, age 12 or so?
So 2009, yeah.
Okay. And then your late wife, she passed away. Did that take a toll on your daughter?
Of course.
Can
He
you tell me
testified
how
to
that
this at
impacted your
trial.
daughter from what you saw, what you observed?
Just, she was young. I mean, she lost her mother, and it's just hard to explain, but yeah, things aren't the same.
It was a traumatic event for her. Is that fair?
Of course, sure.
And then at some point, the family moved from Evanston, Illinois to Green Bay in 2008. Is that right?
Correct.
And you came to Green Bay because of a job, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you lived here for a while in Green Bay, correct?
Yes.
She went to Bayport High School, correct?
Correct.
She went to Bayview Middle School, correct?
Howard Tomical School District.
Yes. And then at some point, there were some issues at the Bayport High School, and
I
she
don't
went
think
to
her
Tula,
educational
Texas, correct?
history helps. He already
Correct.
testified to
Yeah.
this at trial.
And she lived with
It's
your
just
parents,
repetitive.
Esther and Juan Coronado, in Temple, Texas. Is that right?
Correct.
And she graduated?
Yes.
And was that about 2016 or so?
I believe so, yeah.
When you lived with her, was school a struggle for her, or was she able to do the work?
From time to time, I mean, she did okay. She had some issues
I mean, don't we all?
out of the ordinary.
Okay. I'm just going to see if you could just move the microphone a little closer or move a little closer because I can't hear you. Sorry. Would you help with homework and things like that?
Sure.
When you got remarried, did that take a toll on your daughter, Taylor?
I would think so, yeah.
Did you try to help in that regard to kind of bridge the gap?
Yep.
Okay. When she was living in Green Bay as a child, did you get her involved in any sports or activities?
Before I moved up, she was in soccer. She did band for a little bit.
Okay. Swimming?
No.
Okay. With regards to soccer, was she good at soccer?
Yeah.
She liked it?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Did you do some
Counsel?
coaching?
I did.
Was that over at the Asco Noble Field, or where was that?
No, this is in Illinois, actually.
Okay.
Counsel,
Did she play soccer in Illinois and Wisconsin?
her playing
No,
AYSO
I-
soccer is
She
not
made
going to
tryout, but
help
wasn't-
you.
She didn't follow through with it, so.
Okay.
She did a little volleyball as well.
Okay. So she was involved in activities, correct?
Sure.
What about art or drawing or things like that? Was she good at that?
Yes.
Can you
Very-
tell?
She's pretty good. She's a very good artist. She can draw quite well.
Were you impressed by some of the pictures and things that she drew?
Definitely.
Does she have some artistic talents?
I'm always impressed
She
by
have a
my
creative
kids'
side?
drawings.
Yes.
When she was younger, would she help people? If someone needed help, would she help?
Yes. She would.
And I think in the pre-sentence report on page 17 of 38, you talked with a probation agent, and you indicated he stated, this is you, you're the he. He stated she was a good person, kind-hearted, and helped others out. Is that what you said?
Always, yeah.
Brian, this
Now-
is very
Always on her way
fair.
to help.
Okay.
This is
Um,
very fair.
When she got a little older, after school, did she have a job here?
Harmony, it's sentencing. It's sentencing before the
Big
judge.
Okay.
first
The
job.
rules of
Okay,
evidence
what
applies,
did she do
but
there?
It's much less
She was,
formal
she worked
because the judge
cashier
is
and
taking
she
it
was
under
working in the back.
consideration.
Okay. Did she also get a job at Saputo Cheese Factory?
That was later on, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did she do over there?
She was an operator. She worked third shift.
Okay.
She worked there about 3.5 years. She did really well.
Made decent money, correct?
Yep.
She liked the job?
Yep.
And when she was working at Saputo Cheese Factory, was she living with you here in Green Bay?
No.
Okay. She had her own apartment?
Well, she lived with us for a little bit,
Chat,
but yeah, then she moved.
is
out
the
with a friend.
Saputo Cheese Factory like a restaurant, or
Um,
is it like a factory
would you
where
keep
they
in
make
touch with her?
cheese in Wisconsin?
Your relationship with her, is it good?
Anyone?
Definitely, yeah.
I'm curious.
I received some pictures. There are all kinds of pictures that you would take together as a family, correct? Yes.
As much as we could, yeah.
When she was living with your parents, Esther and Juan, in Texas, Temple,
it's
Texas,
a legit
um,
cheese making factory.
you take family photos there, correct?
Yes,
And when AJ was still alive, you take family photos with him, correct?
of course.
Was AJ pretty close with Taylor?
Yes.
Thank you, Chad.
He liked to ride motorcycles.
Now we're
Yeah,
debating
he just started
cheese.
to.
And would he let Taylor ride the motorcycle as well?
It's better than Saputo.
Um,
Chat opinions.
but those two were how far apart in age?
About 2 years.
2 years?
2 years, yeah. They were very close.
They'd get together with extended family in Ohio, correct?
When we could, yeah. Mostly when they were younger.
And they'd certainly get together with your parents in Texas,
I
correct?
didn't want to assume that it
And
would just
so
had to be
does Taylor
actual
have a
cheese factory. It sounds
strong
like it could be a
family support
restaurant, but
network in the
also-
state of Texas and or Ohio?
Sure, everybody loves Taylor.
Think she's a monster?
No.
You understand what she was found guilty of by the jury, correct?
I do.
First degree, intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, third degree, sexual assault, all felonies, all repeaters. You understand that, correct?
I do.
You understand the penalties, correct? And for the homicide conviction, it's life imprisonment. But the issue is whether she gets the possibility of extended supervision or not, possibility of parole or not. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any comments for the court on behalf of your daughter?
Sure, I don't think she needs life imprisonment. I mean, the mistakes were made. You know, her not.
Sir, the victim's family's in court. I think mistakes were made is difficult for me. I also think talking about the drug use, maybe, methamphetamine makes people lose their mind. This isn't who she is. Mistakes were made is real flippant for me. Meth makes people lose their mind. This isn't who she normally is. I could never imagine her hurting someone. She needs treatment. She would never do this if she was sober. Maybe that. Mistakes were made doesn't match the testimony here.
Not being in the right state of mind when it happened, has a lot to do with it. Her whole life, she was a good kid. Drugs mess people up, and
There it is.
that's what happened. But I don't think that she deserves life.
Okay.
Do you think she should
have
be-
given
She
him a
has child,
chance? Keep reading him
It'd be
on.
nice for her to be able to see her child.
You
Keep
agree she's got
reading.
to be punished, correct?
Well, yeah. Yes.
But is it your testimony that you believe she should be given a chance at the possibility of parole sometime in the future
Most definitely. Yes.
or extended supervision? That's what they call it. Yes.
Yes.
You knew that your daughter Taylor got involved with Warren Szabo, correct?
Yes.
And he was the one that introduced her to drugs, correct?
This is the guy that Dad hates.
Meth specifically, correct?
Correct.
Intravenous drug use, correct?
She was like night and day. She completely changed. It's a different person.
You believe your daughter got addicted to the methamphetamine or other drugs?
Yes.
Do you believe that she should get some treatment, counseling?
She should have been getting treatment this whole time. I don't know why she hasn't.
With regards to your daughter, she has mental health problems. Is that correct?
Correct.
She's been to Purveya Health and got treatment there, correct?
Correct.
She's received treatment through Bellin Psychiatric Center in the past. Is that fair?
Yep.
She was under a
She's received a lot
civil
of
commitment
treatment,
order
and
in
she's
order
still
to take
beheaded
psychotropic
somebody.
medications, a court order, correct?
I believe so, yep.
That she was found mentally ill in the past by a court of law here in the state of Wisconsin.
Yes,
You were involved in that process, weren't you?
I was.
Trying to get your help for your daughter, correct?
Yep,
Lots of different medications were tried, correct?
that is correct. Yeah, some that, like she was just the guinea pig for some of that medication that just did not work and probably too strong. Not qualified, I guess, to say that, but just
What-
did not work for her.
Sure. And Mr. Coronado, when she was staying at the Nicolay Psychiatric Center, was it your understanding that she was getting injectable antipsychotic medication during that short period of time that she was there?
I believe so.
And then she was released, and then the medication stopped, correct?
Correct.
Fair to say that your daughter had been receiving mental health treatment or counseling for quite a long time since her younger years?
That's fair. Yep,
That it would start, then it would stop. There was no consistency. Is that fair?
that's fair.
Do you feel that she fell through the cracks with regards to mental health treatment and all that other kind of treatment?
Definitely.
Whose cracks? You're asking her father, though.
You talked to the people from the Department of Corrections, Rebecca Chavez, correct?
I believe that was her name. Wasn't
Okay.
sure.
Did you, when you found out that Taylor, your daughter, was involved with Warren Shabo, did you talk to her about the relationship, or did your daughter come to you and talk about the relationship?
How old was
Whether there
she?
were problems or it was good? Can you tell me about that?
No, they mostly kept to themselves. I knew she was seeing him, but they mostly kept to themselves. So she was working there, and then she quit her job and just hung out with him. So during that time when he was out of jail, we didn't really communicate too much.
Was Mr. Shabo abusive to your daughter?
I believe he was, yeah.
When your daughter was living with you, did she ever come to tell you that she was having hallucinations, visual or auditory hallucinations? She was seeing things, hearing things, anything like that?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, when that happened and what she told you?
Just that she would see shadows, from time to time.
And she'd hear things?
I believe so. Yep.
What did you
It
do?
would come and go. Well, just talk to her, calmed her down, walked around until we were able to get her some help, or try to get her some help through Purveya.
You agree that over time, the field of medicine, the field of psychiatry, the field of psychology improves every year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, if she was taking the medicine, or if it was around, but I don't think the medicine really quite worked for her. She'd be drowsy, would take a different effect on her.
Make her a zombie?
She didn't feel, definitely, yes.
What else were you going to say?
Just she wouldn't feel right. Her stomach would hurt, and just a lot of issues with the prescribed medicine.
Would you agree that your daughter has redeeming qualities to her? Can you tell me what they are?
I don't know, it's sad for me to sit up here, knowing what happened and stuff, and knowing my daughter the way, she was, the way she still can be.
The questions the attorney's asking are leading. That's why it feels that way. They're leading questions. It's a sentencing. It's going to go much faster if he just asks the leading questions. No one's going to object to it because, again, a lot of the rules of evidence are to make sure that testimony is true, to make sure documents are verified and they have foundation, they're not falsified, etc. When it's going to the judge can kind of parse through stuff that's hearsay. Like, the dad doesn't really know if the field of psychiatry has improved that much, but does it really matter? Judges are allowed to take things with a grain of salt in a different way than juries. So the prosecution is letting the defense do what they need to do and just moving it along. So that's why it feels like they're testifying. They're just trying to ask the questions that they need and move forward because it's a sentencing. So it's really a different style of being in court and asking questions than you would see at trial testimony. So hopefully that helps.
just night and day. She was always a loving, caring person. She liked to have fun. Liked to joke around a lot. She's not the monster that she's being made out to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, the dad.
Do you agree your daughter's got to
in
be
prison
punished?
for some rough.
I'm sorry.
Do you agree that your daughter has
Awful.
to be punished?
Has to be punished.
Yes.
I'm sure it is.
Are you saying you want the court to give her a chance to get back into
He didn't really answer that.
society in the future at some point?
Definitely, yes. She need help, mental help, for sure.
And
Is she going to get that help? From whatever happens, moving forward, I don't know, but she definitely needs help.
and is she able to love?
Yes,
Is she able to form relationships with family members,
definitely.
friends?
Yep.
When she lived with you, did she have friends over sometimes or bring people over?
All the time, yeah. She had many friends.
And did she like to go to Ohio to visit extended family over there?
Whenever we would go, yeah.
Don't know if any of that's going to help.
Your daughter, do you think she's a lost cause or not?
No.
You think she could be fixed?
Yes, for sure, definitely.
Going to take some time though, right?
I mean,
With the right help, of course.
meth can cause organic brain alteration, but
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Cross-examination from the state?
No, thank you.
yeah, the state's like, nope. I imagine that the victim's friends are fuming. I wonder if the victim's family, they've known her since she was in high
Another
school.
witness?
Yes, I'll call
It's
Dr.
sad.
James O'Donnell, Your Honor.
It's really, really
Come on up.
sad. But that doesn't, her life experiences are sad, but that does not excuse what she did. They tried that with the NGI, and the jury wasn't having any of it.
James O'Donnell, James, O'Donnell.
Okay, then, Mr. Freilich, the witness is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Dr. O'Donnell, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Can you tell us briefly about your education?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree of pharmacy from the University of Illinois, a doctor of pharmacy from the University of Michigan, a master's degree in nutrition from Rush University.
Previously,
You're
you
a pharmacist?
testified at a motion hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your curriculum vitae or your resume was previously filed with the court, correct?
Yes.
What professional experiences have you had?
I spent 5 years as a clinical pharmacist at the Cook County Hospital, responsible for developing pharmacy services and consulting with physicians, nurses, and patients on drug therapy. I spent 12 years at the Presbyterian St.
And?
Luke's Hospital.
I don't know
Similar
how the
duties,
pharmacist is going to help
During that tenure, I
with any of
switched
this.
from clinical pharmacy to clinical pharmacology, research and practice. During that time, I was appointed to the faculty of the Rush Medical College in the Department of Pharmacology, first as an instructor and then promoted to assistant professor, and currently I'm an associate professor at the Rush Medical College. I ended my hospital work at Rush, Presbyterian St. Luke's, gone through a couple name changes. In the late 80s, since then I've stayed on the faculty and have extensive faculty experiences, but also at that time I expanded my work in consulting first with pharmaceutical companies, some government agencies. That pretty much switched to forensic matters and civil lawsuits and criminal matters in
Butters,
courts.
I think he
various
was the
criminal
one that was supposed to
events.
testify, but
Along the
was
road,
not
I've,
allowed to testify before the
published
jury.
350
I think this is
or so
exactly who it
articles,
is.
including
Um,
several dozen book chapters, all of which address, not all, but most
And-
of which address the adverse effects of drugs, but primarily therapeutic.
and he
but
might be
also
very well
recreational
nuanced
drugs.
with
And I've
brain
have
chemistry,
edited 8 books. The last
with the changes
8,
to brain
number 8
chemistry
hasn't
based
been
on
printed yet, but it's still
drug
in the
use, etc.
printing and final editing
But
process.
he wasn't
5 of
allowed
those
to
books
testify
are
to the
titled Drug
jury
Injury.
because
books
it was
address
beyond
issues
his
of
scope.
both therapeutic and recreational, including
This is sentencing.
amphetamines
Things are a
and
little more lax.
methamphetamines and stimulants. 2 books address issues of the science of drug development. That's a
Yeah, I
brief
think that's exactly why
review of
he's.
my
I think that's exactly why
43-page
he's testifying.
resume.
You've worked as a clinical pharmacist?
A clinical pharmacist and a clinical pharmacologist.
What are you currently doing?
I'm
Thank
currently
you, Antoinette. He's a pharmacologist.
an associate professor working at the Rush Medical College in the affiliated with the Ovarian Cancer Research Lab, a member of the Institutional Review Board for Patient Safety for Investigational Studies, and member of the Admissions Committee for the Medical College. And I also give lectures and seminars in the bioethics course in the graduate
Yeah,
college.
he seems
I
to have a
described my
ton
editorial work. Unfortunately, that book is not finished. I intended it to.
a ton
I
of
intended it to
education.
be my last book. And then I do this forensic consulting.
That Disney nerd, I
primarily in
absolutely
civil
get it. I
matters,
think they were
but,
trying to use
I
him
do
beyond his
work
scope.
in criminal matters like this
at trial.
That consultation work in civil and criminal matters is throughout the United States, including
There was
obviously,
a-
Wisconsin.
402 hearing on it.
You're in private practice, correct?
Yes, sir.
You do forensic consulting, correct?
I'm sorry?
You do forensic consulting?
Yes, I do.
What's the name of your business?
Pharma Consultant Incorporated.
And that's in Illinois?
Bookish,
Yes,
that's
sir.
fair.
Have you ever testified in court before?
Yes, sir.
How many times, sir?
More than 400 times. in
Holy
40 years.
shit!
In what states?
He's the only expert to exist. More than 400 times? Wow.
Approximately 35 to 38 states.
Oh, he's like
including
the
Wisconsin.
he's the go-to guy.
Can
For whatever
estimate
he's about to
10
talk
12
about, he's
states
the
that
go-to.
I haven't given testimony in.
You testified here in Brown County in other car crashes involving reckless homicide, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you testified in any homicide cases?
Drug-induced homicide cases and other homicide cases I have testified, and I've testified in death penalty hearings. Testified in most of the criminal testimony is in things like DWI and aggravated OWI or drug-induced homicide by vehicle, or selling drugs to people that kill the people and they arrest the person that sell or give the drug to them.
Have you testified in state and federal courts?
I have, including in Wisconsin.
Have you testified for private defense attorneys, for prosecutors, for U.S. attorneys?
Yes, yes, and yes.
The topics that you've testified about, can you briefly tell me about that?
It's civil matters. It's
No, he's also a professor. He's done like 8 books. This dude's I'm just interested in what he has to say now.
did the drug cause an injury or not? If so, how did the drug cause an injury? What could have been done to avoid the injury? Within civil matters, since I'm also a pharmacist, I evaluate whether or not the pharmacist committed errors, violated the standard of practice, if their error or violation caused injury to a patient who got the wrong drug with the wrong directions, or was not cautioned about an interaction between one or the other drug. Those are the only cases I testify in the standard of care of a health professional.
Have you worked with drug testing as well?
I've done that in my training and for a period in a research sabbatical 40 years ago. I don't do drug testing. I do interpret drug testing. That's done in a toxicology laboratory or a hospital laboratory to evaluate that toxicology results into a clinical context and what those numbers
How many
mean in
chemistry
terms of
classes did you
what
have to
effect it
take?
would have on the individual from whom the samples were drawn for the toxicology
I'm
testing.
fascinated.
Have
And I
you,
have also given lectures on principles of toxicology in a graduate college.
have you dealt with pharmacokinetics and detection periods?
Yes, pharmacokinetics is part of pharmacology. It is what the body does to the drug, and detection period, by definition, is how long the drug can be assessed, analyzed in various body fluid, be it either
Just
blood,
a little like Creed. All the chemistry.
saliva,
all of the
and
chemistry.
urine being the most common, and urine being the matrix or biologic sample that
Okay. I'm glad
for
that
which
urine is the
longest
matrix for the
detection
sample,
period, exists.
He's probably going to testify about the meth-induced
Have you worked
psychosis
with government agencies?
at some point.
Yes, many.
We're just
Wisconsin
still
Board of
getting through his
Pharmacy,
expert
Illinois Board of
resume because he's an
Pharmacy,
expert.
Illinois
I believe he
Departments
evaluated
of
her.
Mental health,
Because they wanted
public
to have him
health,
testify at
Attorney
trial.
General, Drug Enforcement Administration, United States Attorney, United States Congress, Chicago Police Department.
Harmony.
There may be a few others.
How many chemistry
Wisconsin Board of
classes do you
Pharmacy.
take?
That was the first one.
The
I
expert.
mentioned.
Yes.
Have you ever examined
It's
patients
all.
to determine the beneficial or toxic effects related to drugs?
I did that in my
Yes, he started creating
clinical
new ones, I
practice,
think, himself.
in my,
8
in,
books.
both the Cook County Hospital and Presbyterian St. Luke's Hospital. With a period of about 20 years, I've done that in my forensic practice. Indeed, one of the other things I do is I do private consulting outside of any type of litigation for patients who are seeking answers or assistance on medication management. And sometimes patients are referred to me by their physicians to help solve their puzzles, solve their problems.
So you're Dr. House, chemistry style.
With regards to this case,
Why is
you
your
were,
body doing this
retained
with
by the
these
defense, correct?
medications?
Yes, sir.
And what did the defense, what did I ask you to do as far as services in this case?
You asked me to evaluate the matter, evaluate this Schabusiness chronic and acute drug use related to the homicide, evaluate, review, and to do so to review police reports, videos, autopsy, toxicology of the victim, pre-sentence.
I will say, do you notice that this gentleman who has testified over 400 times has never once referred to a Post-it note or said, I don't want this to be like a memory test? Experts vary. And I'm just saying, he testifies more like the experts I have worked with, where he's just going to tell you everything he knows because he knows it, including what he did in this case.
I've read since then pre-sentence investigation reports. I did interview Ms. Taylor, the defendant, before the hearing I was here for. I think it was in June or July. And I
So he's interviewed
provided
her.
you with my opinions.
He
as
reviewed
to
all of the records.
her drug use, her drug history, my assessment as to the toxicity from primarily an intense, high dose, almost daily intravenous methamphetamine use on
He's
her
appointed by the court.
brain and her behavior, and also reviewing her psychological and psychiatric history, what effects those her methamphetamine use would have on her mental illnesses that she was diagnosed with. So I didn't do the mental illness diagnosis that was done by mental health professionals, but I considered what effect the mental illnesses would have on the drug use and vice versa.
That's very
part of
interesting.
what I do. We look at the drug, but again, get the clinical context. So what is this drug use, either whether it's quantified, actually measured in the exact amounts, or qualified, described as how frequent. Look at any evidence surrounding this as to what or how the drug use affects an individual's life, then take into incorporate the clinical context of prior psychiatric treatment, psychological and psychiatric diagnosis, any psychotropic drugs for any mental illnesses, the effectiveness of those psychotropic drugs, whether or not the patient was compliant with
He
the
said he
medications,
traveled all over the U.S.
whether or not when they use the medications and we're not using methamphetamine,
court
whether their
pays
behavior.
for
And
the
so it's,
experts.
a lot of moving parts, but that's what a pharmacologist
The
does
court.
in contrast to
So
toxicologist
technically the
that just
taxpayers.
looks at the numbers and says, this is how much was used.
You understood, or you were provided information as
Danielle, and I think part of this is why he wasn't allowed to testify, because it was invading the providence of the jury, because at the NGI phase the jury gets to decide. But it'd be interesting to hear his testimony here and then see if that might have come in. Well, we'll see.
to the events that happened with regards to this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're aware that blood was taken from a bucket and then used for testing purposes, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall what drugs Taylor Schabusiness admitted to using up to and during the date of the incident?
Yes. She was using methamphetamine and marijuana, cannabis.
Daily?
Marijuana daily, methamphetamine almost daily. Those are her words. So there were some days she didn't use it, and that was over the course of approximately a 2-year period, with the exception of when she became pregnant, decided and stopped drug use, but drug use resumed after she gave birth and lost her baby, came back to Wisconsin.
Methamphetamine is highly addictive, is that fair?
Extremely highly addictive, one of the most addictive drugs that we know.
Based on your training and experience and knowledge, can methamphetamine use cause hallucinations, visual or auditory?
Yes, both. It can cause a form of drug-induced psychosis.
What is psychosis?
Psychosis, the easiest way to describe it is a loss of touch with reality.
Delusion?
Delusions includes hallucinations, just the loss of touch. What they do makes no sense. What they say makes no sense. They're not reasoned with. To use an old term, they're out of it.
Is that an old term? I didn't realize.
If Ms. Schabusiness indicated that she had used 51 hits of methamphetamine prior to the incident on or about February 22nd of 2022, would you have a concern about that?
Seems like a lot.
What I have concern, yes, I've never heard of that much methamphetamine used in one setting. I'd be interested to learn what the gram weight is of the methamphetamine, because we have a little bit more context then.
He's like, I need to test the strength of it. He's like, I've got a lot of questions.
1, 2, 3 grams a day represents tolerance that the subject has to use more to get the same effect. But even in the course of use of using it, the way methamphetamine is used, it's astounding.
As far as Taylor Schabusiness, how did she use it? Was it IV?
I mean, that was a self-report.
Did she smoke it?
Her usual method of administration is IV, but she told me that she smoked it on the day of the homicide. That was the preferred method of the victim used, who was also a methamphetamine user, and that's how it's the term hit applies to smoking rather than injecting.
Was it your understanding that the victim and Ms. Schabusiness were using meth prior to the incident on February 22nd of 2022?
Immediately prior to, and that for some time regularly used meth together, and that he was her source.
You guys also remember.
Did Taylor tell you when she first started using meth?
Just remember, when she said she had done 51 hits of meth prior to the incident, that was a self-report. What she considers a hit, what this doc might consider a hit, could be very different, but this is a self-report. Clearly she was still functional, and at some point came down from that, but she was also reporting this to law enforcement right after the murder when she was still kind of covered in blood. So it's kind of a grain of salt with that. And also, I don't know what period of time she was considering prior to this. If she had been up for a day or two, then that might have actually not been a 24-hour period, but a 48-hour period. So it's just a lot.
Yes, when her husband was released from prison,
and the strength.
He was a methamphetamine user. He returned to using methamphetamine, and he got her started on it. And I have a figure in my mind of approximately 2 years. I think that release was late 2019. About that time.
Okay. Did Taylor tell you or describe the effects that meth had on her?
It destroyed her life. Those were not her words, but with my take on it, she lost the job that she had for 3 years. It was mentioned earlier, the Saputo Cheese Company. She told me she liked the job. She made good money working there. But when she started using meth, she stopped going to work. Meth was all that she did. She had other jobs, but they never lasted because she was either high or unable to go to work. It changed her.
Which is why the dad hates the husband.
I did not know anything about her personality, which I've heard about today, but she was arrested for aggressive behavior against police officers. And I think that's what precipitated her commitment to Nicolette for the forced psychiatric treatment and medication treatment. She hadn't had that type of behavior before methamphetamine use. She had mental illnesses. She did have
she had aggravating
psychiatric diagnoses
that made it worse.
But those were much more prominent after the methamphetamine use.
What psychiatric diagnoses do you understand that Ms. Schabusiness had at the time of the incident in this case?
By my reading, they're described as bipolar 1 with psychotic symptoms, schizoaffective spectrum disorder, PTSD, depression or major depressive disorder, and history of ADHD for which she was not treated.
Do you have any opinions to share with the court on the issue of impairment or that kind of topic on the date of the incident?
Or like
Yes.
The attorney was so specific earlier, and he's like, so what do you think? Again, it's sentencing. I'm interested to see what he thinks. I think what he's going to say is, with all of the underlying neurology going on, then the methamphetamine use could cause what happened.
Based on in the setting of a long-term chronic intensive use of methamphetamine in a mental.
Oh, Grandma's talking on Zoom. Oh no, Grandma forgot to mute her Zoom. This expert's looking around so confused. That's Grandma on Zoom.
In the setting of
no.
in this young lady's life with a mental illness diagnosis or defect.
Yep, we're going to zoom through some of this. We've got it a little sped up, but yes,
extensive use on that day would cause significant intoxication.
During this hearing, that was 2 days ago.
Methamphetamine affects the prefrontal lobe, executive function, judgment, discretion, consequences, and through a mechanism of altering the brain chemistry, principally dopamine and subsidiaries of dopamine and other neurotransmitters. That's the mechanism of the acute use in a setting of chronic use in similar situations.
Okay. Crystal, this is a great question. Are the use of drugs allowed to be the reason to claim NGI? I didn't think so. It's generally yes, but it's a little more nuanced. So if you are a chronic and habitual drug user of a drug that alters your brain and you are not using and you are altered, then yes, it can be. But something like taking methamphetamine willfully and then having an episode of psychosis because of that, no, because that's a voluntary intoxication. So if you have chosen to intoxicate, if you have voluntarily consumed the thing, then no, it's not a defense, or it can't be used for NGI.
She's already damaged goods. She already has brain damage. She already has brain damage from coming into the setting on the date of the homicide and using again. In other words, the chronic use causes over the constant daily insults to the brain function, the brain chemistry, the brain substance, such that even without the use of continuing use of methamphetamine, there is chronic damage that is present as a result of that long-term use, such that an individual has impairments to that, again, that prefrontal lobe, the cerebral cortex, deliberation, evaluation, judgment, risk-taking. So on that day, extreme,
Yeah, the judge let grandma
intensive
stay and watch. I
methamphetamine
think
intoxication.
she might have not have known
This
to mute.
young lady,
Don't begrudge
because
her
of her
that.
mental illness, the use of methamphetamine in the setting of mental illness, bipolar, particularly bipolar that's not being treated with a
No, he's
psychotropic drug.
going based on his experience.
The methamphetamine exacerbates
Which is
the
why
bipolar disorder.
at sentencing we're seeing it.
And indeed,
the jury
for
didn't.
the Schabusiness, the neuropsychologist who evaluated her a year after the arrest, and a year over.
He did say insults the brain, which is it kind of more specific than like attacks the brain, but it injures the brain. So that's what he means by insults the brain.
Period of more than a year since her incarceration, where she has no exposure to drugs, still has this mental illness and still has psychotic features, and therefore the mental illness is not drug induced. But in this setting, drugs will
Exaggerate.
enhance the
They will
manifestations
make it worse.
or negative consequences of the bipolar. And then finally, and I think I alluded to it, bipolar does have effective drug treatments, certainly much more effective than schizophrenic medications. However, if the patient is not given the medications, or does not take the medications, they don't have the benefit of the therapeutic gains with
That's
medications.
probably me. Sorry.
Under that setting where we have a patient who has mental illness and is untreated and uses a toxic methamphetamine, there's even greater risk for a worsening mental impairment.
This is why he couldn't. I think this is part of why he couldn't testify at trial. And this might be a keep reading situation, but he is giving hypotheticals. He is not saying, I can tell you 100% that's what happened here. He's saying, based on everything, it's most likely that this is how methamphetamine impacted her, and impacted her very badly, and changed the things that she would do or would not do.
Impairment in setting where it's just total psychosis and a total loss of reality.
Because that's
long opinion, but
hypothetical.
I think that's everything.
Yeah.
If a person like Taylor Schabusiness used marijuana at a young age, can that impair, alter, or distort her memory? Yes.
One of the consequences is memory distortion, but there's also a shrinkage of the development of the brain. The brain doesn't develop in a adolescent that uses marijuana chronically the way to its fullest potential as it would without marijuana.
At what age are we
Part of
clear,
that
Doc?
is, so you're
I have
just dealing with
questions.
less mass. One of the impairments that documented is memory distortion.
I have ADHD. The memory distortion's already there.
Acute effects of marijuana with methamphetamine, because marijuana, in my opinion, is you rate these drugs in terms of risk
Good world.
on a scale of 1 to 100.
Thanks, chat.
Marijuana is at a 5, and methamphetamine is
I
at
just had my
1,000.
Tamagotchi.
As far as methamphetamine, does that impair cognition and other temperaments in an individual that uses?
Oh, James, I'm well
Cognition,
past the age. I
thinking,
am clear.
Deliberation,
I've lapped it. I've lapped
control
that
and
age.
behavior, risk taking. There's even
Damn it.
something that I just recently learned: that episodic memory impairments. One of the applications of that is that people get so.
So I'm going to be very fascinated about episodic memory impairments. However, she remembered this incident pretty well when she relayed it to the police. I'm just saying.
Messed up using methamphetamine, but they continue using it. Now they're addicted to it.
Well, because it's
They
addictive.
forget how bad they were during their last near-death binge. So yeah, but it's cognition, and it just wipes out thought processes. There's no control over thoughts, and there's no control over behavior.
Impairs memory?
Methamphetamine, yes, it does impair memory.
Marijuana as well?
Yes.
With regards to methamphetamine, can that drug cause someone to have violent behavior?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Violent behavior. And also part of the violent behavior is the criminal element of people robbing and shooting you to get your drugs or steal your money that you're using to buy drugs. But yes, violent behavior, violent attacks on individuals, attacks on police officers, suicides, homicides. It's one of the most predictably violent and aggressive stimulating drugs.
Yep.
Fair to say that the more meth you use, the worse it gets as far as violence, aggressiveness.
That's fair, but I would have to be caution that not everybody's going to have the same
Right.
extent of the violence,
People's
which is
chemistry is
good,
different.
because otherwise we'd have many more, considering the number of methamphetamine users in our population. We have many more drug-induced homicides, methamphetamine attacks.
Dr. O'Donnell, is it your testimony that meth use alters the brain chemistry?
It absolutely, yes, it is my testimony. That is my opinion. That's well described. That's how it causes the high, by altering the brain chemistry. It's just you do it too much. And indeed, there's some literature that describes eventually the methamphetamine users develop Parkinson-like disease because their brain chemistry has been so messed up when they were young that
It
the
causes
consequences are that
organic
they're at much
brain damage.
greater risk for developing Parkinson's and at earlier age than Parkinson's is seen. Parkinson's is someone with movement disorders and has trouble walking and controlling their muscles.
Is it your testimony that methamphetamine use, chronic acute use, can create delusions, hallucinations, psychosis?
Yes, it is.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, just briefly, Doctor.
Really?
So I wanted to pick up where we left off there. You said that, chronic methamphetamine use, alters the brain chemistry. Is that right?
Yes.
And is that something that can be unaltered in some way?
Bing, bing. The prosecution is going to use this witness to say, look, she has permanently damaged her brain. So there's no amount of time that's going to undo that damage. And she did that damage and then committed a horribly violent murder of a friend. So, yeah, no parole for you. So he's going to use this expert for that.
The brain chemistry?
Pardon?
Is that something that can be unaltered in some way, the brain chemistry?
With many, in regular circumstances, the chemical changes that are induced by a drug do go back to normal in certain circumstances, certain drugs. So the answer is yes.
But what about
Okay, but-
meth?
So, I mean, you're saying from a young age, chronic use of methamphetamine, fundamentally changes the brain. Is that consistent
yes.
with what you said? Okay. So then that chronic use at some point, is that able to be reversed in some manner?
Any damages are permanent.
Okay. And I guess one of the damages of long-term meth abuse, I think you said no control over thoughts, no control over behaviors.
That was acute.
Oh, for acute
That was
use.
acute.
Okay.
The damages of chronic methamphetamine use is that there can be psychosis, there can be lapses into psychosis. It can, and it can worsen any other mental illnesses. That's the major risk. Methamphetamine use doesn't cause mental illnesses. Methamphetamine use can exacerbate mental illnesses while it's being used.
Okay. So let's talk about that. So you're not a psychologist, right?
No, sir,
Nor a psychiatrist.
I am not.
So you rely on some of those prior diagnoses in reaching some of your opinions, though, right?
Yes, I'm relying on diagnoses made by psychiatrists and psychologists.
Okay. And I think you said the principal one was bipolar 1 that Mr. Business had.
Yes,
That was a prior diagnosis that was made.
yes.
That was nothing you, I guess, are capable of diagnosing.
Okay.
Right, I would not diagnose him.
So, if a court-appointed psychologist in the case found there was, quote, no credible evidence she has an underlying mental illness such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or a like condition, you wouldn't be able to dispute that, right?
No, I think it would be no, I would not dispute that.
But obviously, using these prior diagnoses helps form your current opinion about her mental state. Is that right? These prior diagnoses of bipolar 1, schizophrenia.
I use prior.
He really only said meth can make mental illness worse and it can make people violent.
Prior diagnoses and subsequent diagnoses to identify the mental illness that she had and has, and then I considered the effects of methamphetamine without mental illness, methamphetamine with mental illness, the effect of methamphetamine on any mental illness, and the effect of
This is at 1.5. No,
the
1.25.
inability or the non-treatment
We're at
for
1.25.
mental
1.5 is
illness
a little fast.
that puts her at risk
chat.
for behavioral alterations and also greater risk of impairment and toxicity from methamphetamine use. Again, it sounds like it's a lot of moving parts, but I hope it hope it described it so it's not confusing.
I mean,
Sure. So
this one
the
will
information
take about a
you're
day,
relying on in terms of
maybe
the
3/4
acute
hours.
methamphetamine on the date of this incident,
They can take
that's
15
information that comes
minutes.
from Michigan Business,
It
right?
just depends.
It comes
on
from yes, it does, and it's corroborated by the toxicology reports of the victim.
So her intoxication level is corroborated by the toxicology results of some
Well,
person?
if they're using methamphetamine together, and he's the source of methamphetamine, and she's an addict of methamphetamine, she's going to use methamphetamine. And with
I don't think there's any evidence that the victim is the source of the methamphetamine here, but I could have missed that. I don't know how you use somebody who's a different human to corroborate the level of meth that the defendant took when the defendant told the police how much she took.
that's the underlying basis for me believing that when she said she used methamphetamine during those activities.
Okay, so you believe she
Sure,
took
but you have
meth
no
because she
information
said
about
it
the
and the
amount she
victim took
used.
meth too. Okay.
No, I don't.
Or the exposure she had previously or tolerance she had?
I assume she had tolerance. The amount she used previously, with frequency, I don't know whether I got that in my notes or not, and I don't have my notes, so I don't know exactly. But as part of her treatment, she was identified as having methamphetamine use disorder and cannabis use disorder, as well as bipolar 1. I think that those were the diagnoses at the Nicolette Treatment Center, which was not too long before the homicide.
Yeah, sure, in 2021's. But in terms of objective evidence of her intoxication under methamphetamine, marijuana, whatever substance, the night of this incident, you have no information.
I have no toxicology tests from her, and I didn't witness her use the drug. I wasn't there.
And I guess she said she's 51 hits. Did she tell you that, or?
No, she did not. I just heard that last night on the phone and this morning in court.
All right, but that would be something you've
From
never heard
who?
of before in your.
I had never heard of that before.
Okay.
So maybe she didn't.
Thank
tell
you,
the
doctor. I have
police.
nothing further.
You're welcome.
Mr. Freilich, can you redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Dr.
I mean,
Thank you, Your Honor.
if she's exaggerating her drug use, it's not going to help her in this case. So,
Other witnesses, Mr. Freilich?
No, Your Honor. I have no other witnesses other than possibly my client. I have to talk to her about that.
Okay.
well, she would just be a
Well, we
statement.
started late this morning. It's 11:45, so we've been going about
Lunch.
2 hours. And so my inclination is to.
Judge
break
looks
for about
annoyed that they
15
started
minutes and
late.
go back and just keep going. Otherwise, we take a lunch. I don't know how much time what we have left is going to take, but that's what I plan on doing. And I guess, Mr. Freilich, if your client is going to testify, maybe I'd reassess that when we arrive back here at noon.
Okay.
But let's break for 15 minutes. Everybody can take a brief recess. You can speak with your client. We'll come back at noon and decide how we want to proceed from there. Okay?
All right.
Thank you so much.
Give me a moment. They're all going to dismiss. I'm going to zoom past this break so we can get back into court. I think when we get back into court, we will be back into impact statements and then argument from the lawyers. So let me get caught up. And we'll go
Stand
from
right
there.
between those two pillars there. They can.
Let's see. I went a little too far. Shocking. We went a little too much. Let's get right to where court comes back in. All right. Let's skip the break.
Okay, Mr. Freilich.
Oh yes, this is a very on time judge.
Your Honor, my client
He's like-
will make some comments as part of her right of elocution after the arguments of counsel.
Okay.
Interesting. Taylor Schabusiness would like to make a statement at the end. She is not going to testify as a witness. She is going to, as he said, right of elocution. She is going to make a statement on her own behalf after the lawyers argue. So what should happen from here is victim impact statements, legal argument, defendant statement.
All right, very good. Then my thought had been
So we'll see.
that if Ms. Schabusiness was going to testify, we'd probably take a break for lunch and come back. But given that she's not going to testify, she's going to use her right of elocution.
I already
My
know
thought is
because
we
this
should
happened a
proceed
couple
right
days
to-
ago.
to,
So
uh,
I already knew what the judge was going to do. I
Any
guessed
objection to that,
what the
Mr.
judge was going to do
No.
before we heard any of this.
Oh, that's fine.
All right.
Based on the nature of the crime, I don't think there is anything that is going to change this judge's mind off of this being life without parole, just based on the facts of the crime specifically.
So then, I know, Mr. Saunders, you had indicated there was something regarding the victim impact statement you wanted to do.
Tiffany, we'll talk about this when I zoom
How do you wanna
next.
handle that?
I believe now two family members of the victim wish to orally address the court judge.
Okay.
I think just orally as a victim impact statement. So.
Very good. And if they want to come up and stand, there's a microphone right above. If you want to stand right between those two.
So we're
pillars
going
there,
to get to victim impact statements
stand right
from
there.
the victim's family.
If you could just tell me your name
Yeah,
first, sir.
because of the nature of the crime.
Shad's uncle. I basically just wanted to
This is Shad, the victim's uncle. It was a little bit hard to hear.
say that there's no excuse for what you've done. I don't care if it's drugs or upbringing, you know. We all go through hard times growing up, at least the majority of us have.
Well, Shad's uncle is going to say what all of you were thinking as we get into this. Because he's going to say exactly what all of you were thinking.
You have the opportunity to change that. You have the opportunity to, you know, see that you have a problem. There's, you know,
I don't know who is standing in court talking while he is talking, but I really wish the judge would admonish them.
I've been in recovery a little over 3 years in AA. I drank for 41 years. I realized I had a problem. So there's just, basically to me, you took the easy way out. It's you did the most cowardly, weakest thing that you could do possible. You know, you meet a person in school, you say he's your friend, you become friends, you become girlfriend, boyfriend, lovers, gain his trust. An innocent person that's very kind, would do anything for you. And I believe you used that and you had this plan and took your opportunity when you did. There's no excuse, you know, I don't see it no other way. To take advantage of someone's kindness like that, that's like the most irritating thing for me. You know, you get to know somebody and they trust you, and then you do that. You say, and then you say that you're a friend, you're his friend. You said that in the statements. It's like, man. But you know, I walked into a program and it's free. You know, you can go get help and it's free. All over the place there's help. And it doesn't cost a dime, you know. It's either, and the first thing they tell you in there, you know, you want to continue doing what you're doing. It's going to be jail, institution, or death. And you chose that path. You chose the wrong path. They sit here talking about being rehabilitated. Is Shad's mother going to ever rehabilitate from this?
No.
No, but you can go to an institution, you can go to prison and try to be rehabilitated, but I don't see no reason why you'd have parole after the doctor had just mentioned once you have so much damage that it's irreversible. You know, so why don't make no sense to me even to have the option of parole to come back and to gain someone's trust like that again. You know, because that is like the lowest thing a person can do. You know what I mean? I just don't understand that. And the biggest thing is, you know, like I said, you know, the help is free and it's there. You chose not to take, you know, I'm sure you knew you had a problem, you know. You can't blame it on childhood. You know, there's help out there. And if you take the path to go get the help, you wouldn't be in this situation right now. None of us would be in this situation. But to take the cowardly path that you did and to make other people suffer because you were suffering is pretty shitty. So that name Taylor shit business fits you well.
Did he say
And I'm
shit
not a
business?
praying man, but after Judge Walsh here sentences today, I will pray that you meet the same fate as your idolistic Jeffrey Dahmer. So have a good life, shit business.
There's clapping. I'm sure the bailiffs gave them a real strong look.
And then the next speaker will be a statutory crime victim, so we'd ask the media to be advised of that, Judge.
Okay. I just want to, all right, they're indicating they are Going to make sure that they're not videoed.
So the next individual will be one of Shad's either mother or father, and so they will not be on video. We will just hear them. He definitely said shit business. He definitely did. Rachel, it's either going to be the mother or the father of the victim who falls under the statute, which is why they say statutory, falls under the statute, and they are allowed to not be on film in high-profile cases. Or cases that are filmed.
Okay, if you could just, sir, before you start, if you just state your name for the record.
Michael Therian.
Okay, go ahead.
Taylor, I just wanted to say that I forgive you for what you've done to my son.
This is Dad.
And
I don't know. Here what's gonna kill me is that he's known her since their kids were in high school together. Like, I can't imagine having this happen with the people that you had over at your house when they were teens. Okay.
yeah, you made a bad choice, and now you have to live with it. But you know, I'm gonna miss Shad. He was a wonderful child too. Growing up, just mild mannered and just happy. And I know you made a bad choice. And like I said, I forgive you. And I'm gonna ask the judge if you can, you know, if she can see the streets again sometime. You know, it may not be soon, but I believe everybody makes bad choices, and maybe not to the scale, but I think there's a lot of hope for you. I think, you know, you can make use of your time and be a better person, and
Wow.
do great things yet, you know. So
I did not expect that.
it does no good for me to hate you, you know. I know you got a heart. I know you got a mind, and I wish you no harm, and I hope things go well for you. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
The judge is not thrilled with the
Any
clapping.
other witnesses or people I want to speak? Mr. Saunders.
No, I don't believe so.
Very good. Then I'll turn to the state
Interesting.
for sentencing recommendation.
Thank you. So ultimately, the state's recommendation is that the defendant not be eligible for release at any point onto extended supervision. And obviously, we're here.
So we've now shifted. We're going to swoop real quick. We've now shifted into argument for sentencing. The victim's father is asking for a 25 to life, so possibility of parole. The prosecution is asking for life without the possibility of parole, and that's what he's going to argue. I've seen a lot of you in the chat ask, why are they sitting down? Rules shift by court, but the microphones are right there at the table, and if they stand up, they're going to be away from the mics. So it could be the microphones. It could just be the nature of this court.
Here for legally and morally the most serious offense somebody can commit in this state. Really, I think a few points bear emphasis. I'm not going to rehash the entire trial testimony for the court.
The court's well aware.
But I do think a few points bear emphasis. Really, the manner and nature of which Schabusiness caused Shad's death in this case, I think is really one of the more egregious, frankly incomprehensible methods of ending another person's life that we've seen in this county, and certainly in a significant period of time. So
I've seen a lot of cases.
We sometimes see intentional homicides where
of the most gruesome.
There is a bad choice. There is a decision in a moment of anger or whatever it is to pull a trigger on a gun or to hit somebody in anger.
Very different.
And while that intent exists when they're committing that act or when they're pulling that trigger, it's sometimes rather fleeting. The manner, as we heard from the defendant herself, explain how she ended Chad's life. This really wasn't a bad decision. It was a series of conscious efforts. It was continued effort over, as she said, 3 to 5 minutes, as she's telling and describing for Detective Groff and Detective Kemp, pantomiming how she's pulling harder.
Thank you for sharing that.
Glibly talking about how he's turning purple, and I liked it. I'm pulling harder. He's coughing up blood. Pulling harder. I kept going. I was waiting for him to die. This really is an involved process. It's a method of ending another person's life that really is quite significant. And I think evinces some significant concerns going forward, both in looking at the nature of the offense, as we have to, but in looking at some of the other factors the court's to consider, and which I'll be commenting on earlier. It's really one of the most horrific ways to end a person's life. And again, it's not to anyone, but as we heard,
awful.
There was this level of trust and friendship and familiarity between the two, which I think is just really makes the acts of the defendant really incomprehensible in that respect. You have obviously the method of ending his life was significant and serious, but after the fact, not realizing in the course of the conduct, her actions are going too far, and to the opposite, actually going further, as I commented on earlier, but not then owning up to what happened, not realizing the impact of her subsequent acts
Trying to
would
hide
have
him.
on Shad and his memory, on his family, on this community, really, to engage in the acts that she did with his body, which I'm not going to comment on what those are. The court and counselor are aware of what happened and the systematic and organized and laborious efforts she undertook. That's nothing.
I appreciate the prosecutor's
I
restraint.
imagine in
The
many
court's
counties
aware.
have seen acts of callous brutality like that, and I do think that's an extremely aggravating factor. I recall Dr. Tranquita's testimony from trial talking about the amount of effort and volition and choice that would have to be done to undergo what the defendant
For
did
minutes.
over a period of hours. This was not one bad
and then
choice
hours,
in some
too.
respects. It was the choice to end his
Two.
life in the first place. Certainly a bad choice,
Continue
but
on, though.
continued bad
Dismembering.
choices throughout the next day, throughout the morning and into the night, where she's finally stopped by law enforcement. It's the three convictions that Ms. Schabusiness was convicted of, I think are just really some of the more egregious conduct that the court will sentence a person on for some time. The court saw the entire 8-hour interview in the course of the litigation. We saw a portion or portions of that interview as she's describing this to law enforcement. And really, we see really from moment one, and that continued throughout the pendency of the proceedings in the case, to her comments in the PSI. We'll see if the elocution is today, but really a lack of remorse or understanding or appreciation, I guess, is in some respects, of the conduct that she's engaging in. We saw her calmly describe what happened, at some points being rather glib and smirking about what she had done. As we see later in the PSI,
Did happen.
having very little remorse for what she's done. And ultimately, the defendant, we've heard a lot about drug use and mental health history, which I'll comment on later. But really, the defendant herself is telling us why this happened. And it wasn't because methamphetamine. It wasn't because of mental illness. She's telling law enforcement why this happened. It happened because she liked it. It's because she wanted to do it. And again, throughout the entirety of this case, we see this underlying motive is essentially, it's kind of consistent, right? We see, and we have seen acts of acting out, both in court and to examiners.
She
who are
did
seeing
attack her attorney and
just-
throw a chair at the examiner.
It's consistent in the state's view with a lack of.
I will say, though, when chat heard the testimony of the examiner that had the chair thrown at her, while the chat was like, we don't throw chairs at people, the chat was also like, but also I understand where the irritation came from, but we don't throw chairs at people.
Of remorse, of understanding of the conduct that she engaged in. And I think that's all consistent. I think it's all an aggravating circumstance for the court to consider at sentencing. And I want to talk to, because impact on the crime victims is a factor the court considered. And I want to comment on that in two respects. First, the perseverance of this family to have the attitude they have about the case and about Taylor is admirable, to hear the things they've had to hear and experience the things they've had to experience, I think is tremendous. So the thought of the defendant having perpetrated this act and impacting them in that way, I think is incredibly concerning. It was heartening, as I've been the prosecutor for many months on this case and reading the PSI, getting to know more about Shad, and I want to comment on that because unfortunately the case we've heard, really everything we've heard about him has been in the context of what Taylor did to him. And it's really unfortunate that that's the memory that some people will have about him. And again, that's a result of the defendant's acts to, in some respects, really tinge the memory that some may have of him. And I don't want that to be the case. But we heard the good. We heard how he was a good and a quiet kid, how he would always hug his dad on the way out of, before he left the house, how he would read and knit and crochet with his younger sister. And that's the person the defendant took out of this world. For all the talk about how young the defendant is, Shad was 24 when he passed. So all the things we hear the defendant wants to experience in life, she still has that opportunity in a confined setting. And simply put, Shad does not. So the impact on the crime victims, I think, is significant. We then look at Schabusiness's character. I guess I'll first comment on the prior history, which we consider, and I guess we're also sentencing on. There are 3 prior convictions. She was just placed on probation 6 weeks before this offense, and appropriately so. In reviewing the complaints, she kicked an officer. There's indications of methamphetamine or other substance abuse that led to that conduct. She then, in the fleeing case.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt the prosecutor. He's very compassionate. I understand better now what is going on with her hair. The spit mask that she is wearing has a netting mesh that is tied at the top of her head. That's what I was confused about. So it is tied at the top of her head, so she can adjust it, but it looks like she can't take it off or take it down because it is tied at the top of her head. So that, now that they have zoomed in, now I can see the netting. Her hair is very dark, so the netting got lost for me. I thought it was just her hair, but it's tied up there. I don't know if the prosecutor is going to say at the end of all of this, because of Taylor Schabusiness, Shad's mother found his dismembered head. If for no other reason than that, she should be sentenced to life without parole, but we'll see. So there we go. Now we have, look, this is why she cannot pull it off. She cannot pull it down, even though she can reach it. So that is a spit mask. And we'll see if he says it.
Fled at 80 miles an hour down the downtown Green Bay when it's populated with bar patrons and other pedestrians walking down the street. She's hopping curbs. She's not stopping. She's blowing through red lights. Again, there was indicia that drug use was at play there. And those were both in 2020. So as we heard earlier, there was ample time in reviewing the materials. Efforts were made to address the underlying substance abuse issues. She was placed on probation, and really nothing of much was accomplished in that short period of time. The little
it was 6 weeks.
That was accomplished. She absconded from electronic monitoring. She cut off the bracelet and really then obviously engaged in this conduct. So the state agrees that, considering this idea of rehabilitation, and that's always a goal, but in some respects that opportunity was afforded both during the criminal cases and in reviewing all of the materials.
And the civil case.
At many points throughout her life. And unfortunately, either was not followed through with, was not taken seriously. And I think that's a concern going forward. We consider the background of the defendant, and I echo the comments earlier. That's not a childhood. That's not an early adolescence that anyone should have to go through. And that's, it's difficult to hear some of that stuff. But when we consider that sort of background information, unfortunately, we deal with a lot of people who have substance abuse issues in the criminal justice system that lead them to make choices they wouldn't normally make, that leads them to become thieves or become burglars or become misdemeanor offenders. Really, I'm not sure we have a nexus here between that underlying substance issue or mental health history
and this very violent
that
murder
we're sentencing her for today. Certainly, we've had a lot of litigation or testimony about the mental health history of the defendant. The court-appointed experts called a majority of that into doubt, and obviously the jury disagreed that there was any mental disease or defect that led to this behavior. And I comment on that because it's one thing just to say this person has a mental health history or a substance abuse history, and it's important to note, but really why that's relevant at sentencing is it's sometimes a nexus or it's a explanation for one's conduct that maybe then would lead towards maybe rehabilitative efforts. I'm not sure in the case there's that nexus between the prior drug history, mental health history, to the extent there is one, and the defendant's conduct here. It appears there was methamphetamine use. We don't know how much, and we don't know, given some of the comments of the defendant after the fact, how much that impacted her decision making. Certainly, probably didn't help, but we, as the doctor said today,
no,
I don't
long period think the methamphetamine use
essentially forced sobriety,
the decision making
aberrant
in any way
behavior
good
throughout that time. Certainly, obviously, nothing to the extent of what she did to Shad, but I comment on that because yes, there are those histories, and rehabilitation is always a goal of the criminal justice system, and I would think most people in the public and in the state certainly would agree with that.
But Your Honor, even before she's been sentenced, the sheriff's department felt that others were at risk by her behavior and had to put her in a spit mask. So there are concerns about her behavior even prior to sentencing, after conviction.
That as a first option, as a response to addiction, to low-level offenses, rehabilitation is a primary goal. Rehabilitation, while important, should not be a primary goal for the court in this case. And I say that in part because of what the defendant did. I think criteria like punishment and deterrence and protection of the public are more primary factors. But it was very concerning to not only hear the defendant talk about the offense to law enforcement, but the comments that were made in the pre-sentence report, which, as I mentioned, I think evince just an utter lack of remorse for what happened.
He doesn't need to say it. The judge knows it.
It's relevant, a lack of remorse to one's character. Obviously, if somebody's remorseful for their conduct, that reflects favorably on their character, and
is the other
state would be
thing.
the first to acknowledge when that's the case. Here, not only do we have a lack of that, we have really the opposite. We have the defendant in the PSI on page 7 saying, quote, "I don't have any regrets about what I did, and I do not feel remorseful for Shad."
After she's been convicted, her statement is, "No, I have no regrets." Normally in the pre-sentencing report, you see some remorse. You see something. You at least see people feeling badly for themselves that they're in custody. No. In the PSI, she said, "We good." Wow. That I was not expecting that, chat. This is why we watch court. We may know the result, but the journey there is always wild. That's wild. I'm going to back that up real quick. Hold on.
Lack of that, we have really the opposite. We have the defendant in the PSI on page 7 saying, quote, "I don't have any regrets about what I did, and I do not feel remorseful for Shad." So the state's concern really is more, comments like that go more towards protection of the public and an ultimate question for the court of whether
the family reacted to that.
This is a person who should be afforded the opportunity to be released. Because really lack of remorse in many respects is more fundamental to...
and her eyebrows say, "I said what I said." Your Honor, if she said what she said, just...
protection of the public and those sort of criteria. And that's because understanding, appreciating, being remorseful of one's conduct helps that rehabilitation effort, and it helps ultimately then protection of the public. If you're not acknowledging what you did and that it was bad and that you should feel bad to the victim who did what the defendant did to the victim, why should there ever be a potential for release?
Agreed.
To be released back into the community without that understanding. That's step 1 in the rehabilitation effort.
Yeah,
and we don't have that yet. And
She
really,
doesn't
we
give
have
a
something
shit.
completely contrary to that. And that's extremely concerning. So in that respect, I agree with the department.
If you commit a brutal homicide and dismemberment and desecration, and then your response after conviction is, "I'm good with it," I don't think you're showing that you intend to actually work to be rehabilitated. I don't think that's going to work. I agree. I mean, not what I was expecting. All of the what the fuck. So with that, chat, I grant your motion. Motion granted. Where did I put my... I keep needing to put a gavel sound on my soundboard, but chat, your motion for code red is granted. I think it's fuckery. We all went, what the fuck? So I think what the fuckery is the appropriate code for this. And for those of you that are flash sensitive, the flashing stops when the music stops, but code red does flash. So we're going to code red. 3, 2, 1. I think that's the only appropriate response to that statement from the defendant. All right, let's continue with James Corden. Nope.
Department of Corrections in the case. They're recommending Ms. Business not be eligible for release, and the state's joining in that. I've reviewed the defense.
The jail's like, nope.
PSI from
the prosecutor's
Mr.
like,
Highland
nope.
and Ms. Nitz, who were retained. And you know, they acknowledge in some respects the logical course would be to not be released without the possibility of release. But they come to a different conclusion for really 3 reasons, and I wanted to comment on that. First, they comment that she has a documented history of mental health issues, including hallucinations, ideations, extreme emotional highs and lows, things like that. I do think that's inconsistent with the expert testimony from the court-appointed witnesses in the case, from Dr. Engen, from Dr. Seipel. Really, I commented on Dr. Seipel's quote to the doctor earlier in his testimony. I'm not sure if that's the case here. I think it's fair to say some of the beliefs are questioning the behavior that we're seeing, wondering if it's volitional. Some doctors even being more forceful in that opinion that it's fundamentally volitional choices that the defendant's making. Dr. Seipel found no credible evidence in that, and we're not here to litigate that. I comment on that because if that's one of the bases to conclude that she is eligible for release, I don't know if that's consistent with the evidence that the court's been presented in the case. Second, her intense use of methamphetamine just prior to the offense. Again, I don't know how much of an impact that had. Certainly, we heard about sometimes meth use can cause those gaps in memories and things like that. That's not consistent with what we saw. We saw, to whatever extent the defendant used methamphetamine leading up to the offense. First of all, I don't know if we know what impact that had. And second of all, I don't know how it alleviates the defendant's responsibility or alleviates or gives rise to this notion that if we just have her be treated, that this wouldn't happen again if she was released into the community. I don't know if that nexus is there in this case. The third consideration they commented on is her present inability to fully process and acknowledge the act she engaged in, noting that it appears to come from her reviewing the reports generated by law enforcement. And again, the court's seen the interview. Her recollection and appreciation and understanding of what she did is evident from moment one. It's not from reviewing police reports. In many respects, she was leading the investigation. She knew more than Detective Groff and Detective Kemp, and she's pointing out where everything is. She's providing accurate information that's corroborated by law enforcement on the scene. So this notion that this is somehow she's not fully processed what's going on, not only is that contrary to the evidence, the evidence we have is that she has processed and she simply does not care or appreciate what she did.
She does not care.
And I think that's consistent with her comments in the PSI. It's consistent in her attitude and comments to law enforcement in both interviews. And again, I talked about this at length in talking about her remorse, but that gives significant pause. This was not a person who was psychologically unable to understand what she was doing. She knew exactly what she was doing. The jury agreed. And I think that's evidence from the evidence in the case. So they also talk about, this denying the eligibility of release is to reject the possibility that there may be advancements in the future. And certainly that's potentially the case. We have no idea what Mission Business will be like in 2040, 2050, 2060. But that's just one of the factors the courts can consider. To only think in those terms neglects the other criteria, neglects what she actually did in this case, the moral need for punishment, the need for deterrence, the need to protect the public from somebody doing that to another person in this community.
Who seems fine with it.
Rehabilitation is always an effort, and hopefully in a
what
confined setting,
deterrent is there for her to not do it again if she's fine with it?
The only criteria. The only criteria.
She's like, I'm good. We're good.
We also have to address what she actually did. And what she did, as I commented on, is significant.
It's horrific.
So, really, in light of these circumstances, I think the department's recommendation for Mr. Business not to be eligible for release is appropriate.
Life without parole.
There are select cases where the legislature has determined that somebody in the court's discretion should not be eligible for release into the community again. And
this is one of them.
Looking at the criteria and what the defendant did in this case, that's seemingly this case seems to be kind of made for that sort of a result, what the legislature had in mind in crafting that possibility. So I believe the court should exercise its sentencing discretion and deny the eligibility for release. I think in that event, the sentences on the other counts are perhaps moot, but I think the PSI's recommendation for consecutive sentences on the other matters are appropriate.
I don't know. I think you
sentencing
could
after revocation,
life
I'll
without
just
parole
agree
and
with
make
the
them
department. They
concurrent.
recommend a year in jail. That's appropriate.
So,
But really,
Me 5 years ago probably wouldn't have said
preeminent
that.
case is obviously the case we're here for today. So that's all I have to say. There's credit, but we'll wait till the end. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Freilich.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. There's a lot of information that the court has to sift through and assess and analyze in this case. We've got the State of Wisconsin Department of Corrections pre-sentence investigation report. We also have the Forte Investigations independent PSI or pre-sentence investigation report. The court heard some testimony from family members, my client's cousin, her father, her grandmother, Dr. O'Donnell. What we have here is a horrific situation that happened. It can't be undone. Certainly, the defense agrees that Taylor Denise Schabusiness has to be punished, but she's a young person. She's 25 years old. We can't undo what happened. What we know is that she's got family that supports her, that loves her, family in Texas, family in Ohio, extended family out there. They're all willing to try and help Taylor in whatever way they can. I think that my client, Your Honor, is not a throwaway. She's not a monster. She's certainly got problems, and over time, I think she can get control over her problems, get help, get rehabilitation, and also be punished. Clearly, when during the trial, the court saw the videotape footage, and when the Green Bay police detectives and officers came to the Eastman Avenue apartment and they made contact with Taylor out on the porch or on the steps, and then had her go back inside and sit down on the stairs, you could tell that she was high on drugs. And then eventually she was questioned and taken out to the police squad car for further questioning.
I don't think there's any question that she was under the
Taylor is not
influence
a
of
throwaway.
methamphetamine.
She's a human being. It's not an eye for an eye. I'm very impressed by Michael Therian, Shad Therian's father. He has a huge heart, and he forgives my client for what happened. And he, from what I heard, believes that he thinks that my client should be given the opportunity for
Before he heard your client say that she doesn't care, but I'm just saying.
parole or extended supervision down sometime in the future. And I'd ask that the court consider that. He's the victim in this case, and what he asks of the court should be strongly considered. I have a client who is very young. She's a young woman. She has severe mental health problems. It's the elephant in the room. We can't ignore it. She's got all kinds of mental health problems. They have been bore out in the records from Prevea Health, from Nicolay Psychiatric Center, from Bellin Health. She was under a civil commitment order in 2021 and under an order to take psychotropic medication. And this young lady has a lot of mental health issues that need intensive treatment and counseling over time. She is a dual diagnosis client or patient. She has severe drug addiction issues, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine. She apparently used it where she smoked it, where she used it through an IV intravenously. She's had problems for a long time with drugs, and that's an issue that really needs immediate attention by professionals. But this has never been about an eye for an eye. It's about fairness and justice. That my client should be punished, but she should also be given the opportunity to have a chance at the possibility of extended supervision or parole supervision sometime in the future after she gets help. This was one incident. I would argue that my client should not necessarily receive separate punishments, although we have convictions for 3 separate crimes. But it was an incident that occurred on one particular date, February 22nd of 2022.
Well, she's also got the
sentences should be concurrent.
preceding it.
I would argue, Your Honor, and ask the court
I
to
guess he
consider
could give her
the fact
like
that
80
this was likely a
instead of
meth-fueled
25,
type of incident on the date
depending
of
on the
this
sentences
tragedy.
on those other ones, if they do them.
Shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. As far as looking at my client's life, she was born in Evanston, Illinois, Chicago area.
Sir,
Moved
I appreciate you
with
trying.
family
We
to
have
Green
heard
Bay,
her
Wisconsin in
life.
2008. Went
She
to
had a
school
hard
here
life.
in the community.
Agreed.
Went to high school here at Bayport. And then at some point she went to live in Texas with her grandparents, and then came back. I would argue that Taylor Schabusiness has redeeming social values. She's got the ability to do artwork. She's like soccer. She's like swimming. She's able to function independently. She's of average intelligence. She's got.
Did you see her look at him?
Skills.
He's like, she's of average intelligence, and she's like, her eyes slid over. She's like, sir, what? Sir, what?
She's a high school graduate from Cotulla High School in Texas, where she graduated in 2016. She was very good in different classes like social studies, physical education, science, economics. She's had different kinds of jobs as a cook for Big Beef City in 2012, 2013. She worked for Tour Temple in Texas in 2000.
Big Beef City.
12. She worked for Saputo Cheese for about 3 years in 2017 to 2020, making about $21 an hour. She worked for Seek Staffing. When she was in Texas, she was apparently a maintenance supervisor where she made close to maybe $32 an hour. And she was certified for employment purposes in sanitation, forklift, driving, pallet jacking, safety locks, things of that sort. So she's able to
I don't know
do well.
If you
those
let her
pictures,
use a forklift.
The family sent those pictures to me, and I sent them to the court. I think the pictures show Taylor as a youngster, as a teenager, and as an adult, that she's got family that loves her, that supports her, that she is needed, and that she can form relationships, and that she's capable of love. I think that Mr. Coronado,
He's
it's unfortunate
trying to
of
argue
his
that
situation,
she is
but
not
he indicated to the
a cold-blooded sociopath, and she can be rehabilitated. That is his argument.
pre-sentence writer that Taylor was a good person, kind-hearted, helped others out, that Taylor struggled after her mom, Marla, passed away in 2009. Taylor Schabusiness has suffered a significant amount of loss in her life. She lost her mom, Marla, in 2009, lost her brother, AJ, in 2022 from a motorcycle accident. You heard about the other losses from the cousin that testified. My client has a little boy, Mateo, who's age 1, and he's living with Juan and Esther Coronado in Temple,
They said
Texas.
he was 2.
Those pictures speak 1,000 words. You could see that Taylor was delighted to have that baby come into her life. She kissed his head. She hugged the baby. She was happy with being around her grandparents. You could see that she was close with her brother, AJ. All of these pictures show that she has had a good life where she got love and support from family. The tragedy, the fact that she has these losses, I don't think they were ever really addressed in counseling, but they eroded her mental
Danielle,
health.
that's fair.
And she had underlying problems
Almost.
besides all of that.
Fair enough.
My client certainly has a prior record, but it's not a long record. It's not a record where she assaults people and things of that sort. In looking at the
prosecutor say she kicked
independent
the police
pre-sentence
officer?
investigation
I'm just
report from Paul Highland,
asking.
those writers, Mr. Highland and Carrie Nitz, a PsyD licensed abuse counselor, indicates that Ms. Schabusiness' present inability to fully process and acknowledge the acts that she engaged in on February 22nd, 2022 exists. My client has these mental health problems. She's not getting treatment in the jail. She's not apparently on any medications and probably needs to be. She needs to see professionals to help her address some of these problems that she has.
I don't
But
know
with
if
the
she
proper
wants to do
treatment,
that,
with the proper
though,
medication,
counsel.
with the proper counseling, I think she can turn it around.
She hasn't
and do great
asked
things like her father, Arturo
for
Coronado,
help,
testified
it
to.
seems.
She's not a lost cause, Your Honor. And the writers from Forte Investigations indicates at this time, presently, she's unable to psychologically fathom the crimes that she committed during her mental state on February 22nd of 2022. I agree with that. I don't think she is currently able to do that. She's going to need some treatment to process all of this. She was likely in a drug-induced delusional state at the time that happened. And you even heard from Dr. James O'Donnell.
She told the police where
has a lot of
his
experience dealing
different
with
and various
methamphetamine
dismembered
use, chemicals and all of
parts
that.
were,
He indicated
though.
that chronic methamphetamine use causes cognitive impairment. It impairs cognition, can cause violent behavior, delusions, hallucinations, in some cases psychosis, and a loss of touch with reality. And I would argue that that's likely what happened here. Likely would not have happened if my client was not using drugs with Mr. Therian. And it's my client's fault that this happened, and she has to be held accountable for that. But the court needs to take that into consideration here. And the court has the discretion to do whatever the court feels is appropriate,
She
taking into
spent
account
minutes
all of the sentencing factors.
strangling him to death.
Punishing my client for decades, like the Forte investigation independent PSI recommends, is appropriate. She can be punished, but at some point, she should maybe be given the chance or the possibility of being on extended supervision. Because to deny the possibility of consideration for extended supervision in the future is to reject the possibility that there may be advancements in medicine, in psychology, in therapy. Maybe certain medications can fix some of the problems that she has. This is a very complicated
She agrees with you,
case
counsel.
from a psychological,
But
from a
he
mental
keeps
health standpoint,
trying.
from a medical standpoint.
It's hard to fight for someone that's
And
not fighting for themselves.
I would argue
get
that my client should be given the opportunity to live her later years possibly outside of a confined setting.
The victim should have been given an opportunity to reach
it'll
his
give
later
her
years.
incentive to work hard in counseling,
The
in
prosecutor is
therapy,
coming out.
participating in interviews with professionals to try and get a better understanding of the crime and the factors that contributed to it. And the possibility of parole, like Mr. Highland says, is not synonymous to the probability of parole. We're just asking the court to consider the possibility of her being afforded extended supervision or parole in the future, sometime in the future, after thousands of hours of therapy, after thousands
He's like,
of hours
hold
of
out the
counseling,
possibility that
after
she can get out
possibly
one
taking
day.
prescribed
Leaves
medications,
the door open.
following the strict adherence to the medication regimen.
I'm interested to hear what the judge
My
has to
client
say.
apparently doesn't seem to have much in the way of a violence in her life, threats to people, and only after an extended period of time of living appropriately, vigilantly, could she have the possibility of being considered for supervised release. So I agree with what Mr.
Well, then maybe she
Highland
should
and
get sentenced.
Ms. Nitz have to
Maybe
say
she
about,
should get sentenced.
their recommendations, and I'd
consecutively.
ask that you consider that, Your Honor. I'd ask that the sentence.
And what I mean is, she has 3 charges. I don't know the sentencing ranges on them off the top of my brain. I should have put them in my notes. But if the murder one is 25 to life, if another one is 10 years and another one is 10 years, she could get the 25 plus 10 plus 10 consecutive one after the other, and then be considered eligible for parole in 45 years, not in 25 years. That's where we're talking about doing the consecutive, versus if you give her life without parole, then you run everything else at the same time concurrently.
This for counts 1, 2, and 3 all be concurrent to each other, as recommended by Forte investigations.
Concurrent at
And
the
then
same
I'd ask
time.
that you consider granting her consideration for extended supervision, make her complete a mental health assessment, comply with all recommendations, have her complete an AODA assessment and follow those recommendations, submit a DNA sample that's required under Wisconsin law. I think that Forte investigations did a very good job, a very detailed analysis of my client's problems. They did an alcohol and other psychoactive substance abuse evaluation and concluded and opined that my client has a history of using mind-altering substances, that that she had some losses in her life, but that she also had
She did those things.
some good parts of her life where she graduated from high school, had a baby, had jobs. It talks about the history of using substances. I took some notes on that.
Chris, that's correct. There's no death penalty in Wisconsin.
Well, it looks like she started using alcohol at age 6 and then continued onward with
I have more
using
questions for
marijuana,
Dad.
maybe at about 14 or so.
When he was like,
and then got into
she slipped through the cracks.
stimulants.
How is she using
methamphetamine,
alcohol at 6?
and started using methamphetamine at age 21. You know, using these drugs, the methamphetamine is probably one of the worst drugs you can possibly use, but it changes your brain. It changes the chemical composition of your brain. It causes all kinds of problems. She used marijuana for...
Chess purist, the victim in this case was her friend from high school, who she was having an intimate relationship of sorts with. The father of the baby is in prison for dealing methamphetamine.
Sometimes almost daily until she got to be 21. So you can understand maybe how her thinking and her judgment and her ability to process was completely
She did cut off an
impaired.
ankle bracelet.
And then you add another layer of the mental health problems. Of course, it's going to create hallucinations and auditory and visual hallucinations where she doesn't go to sleep, stays up all night, stays up for days on end. Certainly, she was under the influence of methamphetamines at the time of this offense. And she really hasn't had much in the way of treatment. I think treatment could help fix or reduce some of
She
the
had
problems that she
treatment
has.
at
I think she's open to
multiple
it because
facilities. We
she
heard
tried it
about
in the past.
trial.
And maybe she resorted to drugs, Your Honor, because that's what she saw her mother do as far as using alcohol or other things. And that's how they coped. You know, you learn from your parents. My client, apparently, according to Carrie Nitz, meets the criteria for substance misuse diagnosis. And all the different diagnoses are as follows: alcohol use disorder, cannabis use disorder, severe opioid use disorder, morphine, stimulant use disorder, methamphetamine, stimulant use disorder, crack cocaine. And that Carrie Nitz, NITZ, recommends that Ms. Schabusiness engage in treatment in a residential or inpatient service program where she can receive intensive services in a structured environment with a focus geared towards motivational and intervention strategies, as well as promotion of recovery and close monitoring of sobriety.
If she will accept
It's recommended
treatment.
that these services be received duly with the services to address her significant mental health related issues. Providing these kinds of services and recommendations, it may be possible for Taylor Schabusiness to obtain control of her life, engage in meaningful relationships with others, and adequately address her substance misuse, and which could possibly change the direction of her life, benefiting her and the criminal justice system. I think it would be a tragedy to, as an argument on
To
behalf
throw
of my
away the
client,
key?
to give her life in prison without the possibility of parole. I think that the court should definitely take into account
This case is a tragedy.
the defense is recommending, what the independent pre-sentence investigation is recommending, and what Michael Therian is recommending. I don't believe that my client wanted to do this or liked doing it. I think that she really wasn't able to completely understand or
Sir,
fathom what
that's
was
not
going on.
what the testimony was.
And when she
though.
was talking to detectives from the Green Bay Police Department, she was still hopped up on drugs. Her mind just wasn't thinking straight. How could it? But she was cooperative and told law enforcement what
definitely
happened,
was
gave them information
cooperative.
that helped with their investigation.
She told them
The
everything.
fact that she was cooperative should be considered by the court.
She did
I
tell them
calculated
things.
the jail credit, and she was arrested on February 22nd of 2022. So through today, I come up with 581 days of credit. I talked to my client. I don't know how many hits of meth she took. She indicated maybe it was 51 hits prior to the incident, but she took a lot of meth. I would argue and
Your Honor,
submit
I
that
would
the more
just
you use,
say it's a
the
whole
worse it
bunch-
gets, especially if you have an underlying
whole
mental health problem.
bunch
The
of
underlying
meth.
mental health problem, as Dr. O'Donnell states, it was exacerbated by the heavy use of drugs. And
I
you know,
believe that. I mean, I absolutely believe
the
that.
doctors and the state, it seems like, other than Dr. Lighton, who said that woman is psychotic, all the other doctors seem to think that, oh, my client does not have a mental health diagnosis or a mental health issue, and she does. That's why
That
she was
woman
under
was a
court order
mess.
of the state of Wisconsin for civil commitment and a medication order. I would also argue that the fact that she used marijuana at a young age, 12, 13, 14, whatever it was, and whether it was daily or not, it likely changed the chemical composition of her brain and made her incapable of making rational decision. Her brain, her thought process, her ability to
What makes me so
think,
sad about all of
rationally,
this
all got eroded over time.
is as the doctor is
And, Your Honor,
talking about
there
the
are
fact that she has diagnosed untreated ADHD. Runkle talks about this a lot. The amount of people who need different types of treatment and do not get it is so frustrating. But by the time we get to 25 and you have made choices, you don't get to just say, well, I was doing a whole bunch of drugs. None of it should matter. It does matter. This case is so avoidable and so sad.
Aggravating factors here, but there are also mitigating factors. And I would argue that Taylor Denise Schabusiness has many redeeming
Is she
social
laughing?
qualities. She could turn her life around with
Her
counseling,
attorney?
with education, support of her family, support of her dad, support of her aunt and cousin that's in the courtroom.
How long is
with
her dad in
medication
custody for,
management
though?
through a psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist or doctor, possibly getting back on injectable antipsychotic medications to treat her psychiatric and other problems. Get into criminal
That she
thinking
stopped
classes in prison,
taking
maybe have a full
immediately as she was
psychiatric
out.
evaluation, and have a structured daily regimen. This young lady, I've worked with her for quite a long time.
since
I've
she
seen
had
a lot of positive things in her.
attacked her last attorney.
And I think that part of it has been the drugs were just clouding everything, where she couldn't think straight and just wasn't making right decisions. But she can turn it around. She can make better decisions in the future with help. And I think there is a nexus between her substance abuse problem and mental health history. Certainly,
think
my
that's probably
client
true.
needs punishment. The public needs to be protected. But also a factor is rehabilitation. And after time, after years, she should be given that opportunity to be released under supervision of the Department of Corrections. She'll need close rehabilitative control,
Yeah.
but she deserves a chance. And I mean, the court has to weigh the scales of justice. We see them all the time. From testimony, from records, from arguments, from exhibits, and from what people say, what victims say, what Michael Therian says. So I would ask that you consider these arguments on behalf of my client, Your Honor, as to
He's
recommendations
absolutely
of Forte
absolutely
investigations.
trying.
I'd ask that you go along with that. Ask that it all
Bernice,
be concurrent.
congratulations
Give her the credit that
on
I
your
already stated.
sobriety.
And as to the
There are lots of sober
revocation
loners in
manner,
the chat.
defense would agree that she should receive 1 year in jail. We ask that it be concurrent to any other sentence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Submission of business, this is your opportunity to address me. If there's anything on your mind you'd like to say before I pass sentence.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
Where is the goat? The goat has the. Your counsel told us that you wanted to make a statement. We were curious. She absolutely changed her mind. She was like, nope, no ma'am, no ma'am.
Very good. Well then, when passing,
She said what she had to say at the
the court has to
pre-sentencing
consider the factors set
investigation.
forth in State versus Galleon. So I have to consider the gravity of the offense, the character of the defendant, the need to.
The judge is going to lay out how he does this, and that's important. But I wanted to talk about this. Where did the comment go? I don't. Steve C, isn't there going to be an appeal? There's always an appeal. There will be appeals. This was a very well run and executed trial. I don't think we'll see anything from the appeal, but in every conviction like this, there's automatically an appeal.
Factors set forth in State versus Galleon. So I have to consider the gravity of the offense, the character of the defendant, the need to protect the public, as well as other aggravating and mitigating circumstances, including rehabilitative needs and punishment and deterrence, and then craft a sentence in each case that's appropriate. In this case, when I consider the defendant's character, I can say that over the course of this case, I've learned a great deal about you, Miss Schabusiness. First of all, you were born in Chicago, lived there until you were about age 12 rather. You seem to have had a stable childhood.
I'm sorry,
loved by
Your
your
Honor,
mother.
I appreciate you. I like this judge. But he's like, you seem to have had a stable childhood. But also her counsel's like, she started drinking at 6. So there was some chaos there. Just some chaos there.
Father and your brother. And unfortunately, your mother passed away when you were 12. Your brother passed away in a vehicle accident, and your dad's incarcerated.
That is
But
not
I'm
easy.
confident that all three of them probably still love you very much. Her father's employment was transferred to Green Bay when she was about 12 years old, and hence began the contact Miss Schabusiness had with this community. She attended Bayport High School. At about 16, she moved to Texas to live with her grandfather.
Which
She
hopefully
graduated from
was
high school
stable.
in Cotulla, Texas, and eventually came back to Green Bay because she missed her father and her brother, which again doesn't surprise me any because, as I've indicated, I think they both love her very much. She's worked in this community. I read over the pre-sentence investigation report that I ordered, and that outlines some work experience that she has, and I think that's a favorable character trait because, quite frankly, not everyone that lives in this community does work, and I think it indicates someone who wants to get out and support themselves and not make anybody else do it. But that reflects on character. She has a limited court record. Certainly, we have pretty much the entire extent of her criminal record in front of us here today. But it's a limited record that reflects on character. She's got a family who cares about her. And although sometimes I think people take that for granted, if you sit in this courtroom long enough, you'll realize that you should never take your family for granted because so many people come in sitting in that chair in an orange jumpsuit
Alone.
and have absolutely no one who will come in and say, I'm with her. And that takes a little bit of fortitude to come in and do that. And frankly, today she's got extended family that comes in and does that for her because her direct family are unable to do that for various reasons. And so I think that speaks to Ms. Schabusiness's character, because there's people in this world who find value and worth in her, that they're willing to come in and stand behind her. So I think that reflects on character. I'm cognizant of the fact that she began using drugs at a very young age, marijuana at age 12, cocaine at around 18, and methamphetamine at around 18 as well. And we've heard a lot of testimony about drug usage. I don't have any doubt that that has an impact on how people conduct their lives and behave from moment to moment. But quite frankly, as far as this incident and these events go, I think I've spoken to this already in prior hearings, but the fact of the matter is, when I watched the interview with law enforcement shortly after these events, I observed someone who was lucid, understanding what was going on, was tracking what was being asked of her.
Yep.
Answers were tracking. Everything seemed to be together at that moment. I don't really see the influence of drugs now. It doesn't mean it's not there, but I didn't see it in that interview, which is the most close proximity to the events of this night that we have, is that interview.
He doesn't
And
necessarily
right then and
believe
there,
she was that.
She seemed to be
so under the
very
influence
lucid in
she
what she was
couldn't
doing. But I don't doubt
conceive
there's a
of what she
long
was
history
doing.
of drug use, serious drug use. Methamphetamine is a plague in this community, and it seeped into this case as well. And it's something that we have to constantly fight against. It's not a battle that the system wins often, but we're making some headway. And every little step we take is perhaps one life that can be saved as a result of that drug coming into this community. But it's a big problem, and it is in this case. I've heard about Ms. Schabusiness's mental health history. I've read stacks and stacks of mental health records that have come in as recently as a few days ago. And I read them over, which allowed me to learn even more about Ms. Schabusiness and about her character and who she is as a person. I've heard about her son who lives in Texas, and I'm absolutely convinced that she loves her son. I'm going to say more about that in a minute, but that's a piece of who she is because she's a mom. And I think that is a title that is a precious title, and it's an important title. I'm also convinced that a person comes into this court with their life up to that point in time as a demonstration of their character. What kind of a person are they? What do they bring to the table as a member of the human community? Not just this community, but as a community, the human community as a whole. And there are some things about Ms. Schabusiness that speak well of that. I was a little bit put off by a statement that I read in the pre-sentence investigation report, frankly, from her father. He said on page 17 of that report, "I feel like the system could have helped Taylor and kind of failed her as well." And I reflected on that because it's difficult to understand who people refer to when they say the system fails people. Because you know what? It's not the job of the system to raise people's children. The system tries to do that. The system is not perfect. Like our fight against methamphetamine is not perfect, but we carry the fight on. People in our community get into the system, be that the court system or the system dealing with child protection. Really, I think what
the judge has thoughts.
I don't know, but it seems to be the government. The government needs to come in and do more to take care of people who have gone astray. And I'm not sure that that's the case.
The judge has a lot of thoughts.
Nonetheless, attempts are made. Attempts are being made in this courthouse every day. And to suggest that somehow it's the system that failed. It always surprises me a little bit when people come into court. They're coming in an orange jumpsuit and chains to suggest that it's the system that's failed my daughter. There's a certain irony in that. There really is. And it disturbed me when I read that piece. I'm not so sure it's really relevant to
Judge has a lot of feelings about
business. But it was relevant to what I heard from this witness here today, because I think the system does the best it can. It's imperfect, and it has very much to do with the amount of resources that the public wants to put into the system, and those resources are finite. But as I say, in this building, the system is doing everything it can to fight drug use with all of our treatment courts, with everything we do, to try to help push back the plague of drug use that's occurred and that we've heard so much about in this case. So I read that statement. I heard from
the judge read that statement
father.
and went, "The fuck."
He is coming in here to talk about his daughter, who's also going through the system. And I couldn't help but think of everything I heard about Mr. Business's son, because it seems to be a cycle. It seems to be just a circle. It's coming around again. So that if he ever finds himself in the situation that his mother finds himself in, where she's the only one he's got left to come in and speak for him, again, I guess it's the system that's done something, but it all starts, frankly, at somebody's home and what they have to offer to their children. And so anyways, I reflect on that. But I'm also convinced that, no one is responsible for where they come from, but you are responsible for where you're going. So there's a lot of tragedy that has occurred in Ms. Schabusiness's life. There really is.
I think that's a fair statement.
I've already reflected on some of that. And it almost seems as if you could apply the phrase, she never had a chance, to Ms. Schabusiness. But as I said, you're not responsible for where you come from, but you are responsible for the choices you make about where you're going. And Ms. Schabusiness has got to be held responsible for that. And this is the ending of a process that is doing just that. At the same time, I'm absolutely convinced that, irrespective of the sentence that Ms. Schabusiness gets, which in light of these charges is going to be a life sentence, every human being has the ability to move forward and find meaning in their life. And Ms. Schabusiness has that opportunity, just like anybody else in this courtroom. She has the ability to do that.
I really like
certainly
this
hope that for her.
judge's judicial temperament.
But all of those things I reflect on
and
when I
demeanor
consider the
a
character
lot.
of this defendant. Next, I move on to the gravity of the offense. And I sit in this
Tremendously
chair
thoughtful.
often, and I address situations where people have been have lost their lives, or people have been violated terribly, and I always indicate that really the offense in this case can't be overstated, and that seems very appropriate to say that in most cases when there's been such a death or a violation. But in this case, it seems different. In this case, you seem to run out of superlatives when describing what happened in this case. You really do.
Yep.
The list of superlatives don't seem to measure up to what you see.
To the horror of this case.
And what we heard about in the trial. This crime offends human decency, it offends human dignity, and it offends the human community. It really does. When someone loses their life needlessly, it's tragic. It really is. It's tragic for family and friends and community. When life is taken from a person in the fashion that it was in this case, where the victim's remains are cut up and packaged in containers, it's difficult to identify a human nature in those activities. It really is. It's very troubling. It's difficult to recognize the general belonging that most people have for their community. It's difficult to recognize community in anything that happened in this case. This is a small community that we live in, where the web of relationships almost encompass everyone who lives here, such that people look out for each other and care when something bad happens to one of our members. And in a broader sense, the community we exist in is the human community, as I've reflected on. And these actions are foreign to all of that community. And they shock the community beyond the ability to adequately express in words. They really do.
Because it's abhorrent.
And that's the gravity of this offense. That is the gravity of this offense. There aren't superlatives for it. There aren't really words for it. You can get a sense of it. You can get a sense of it and a feel for it, but there's no really way to express the gravity of this offense. So the need to protect the public is an important factor the court needs to struggle with as well. And in light of what I've just indicated, I think it's plain that there is a need to protect the public in this case. As I said, this behavior seems so removed from the human community as to be.
She completely dismembered someone, and then after her conviction said, I don't have any regrets for that at all. So yes, I think the need to protect the public is a large consideration here, Your Honor.
Unpredictable. It really is. And in a place where this kind of an offense, kind of actions, kind of a crime is possible, with no advanced warning signs, and absolutely anything's possible then. Where this kind of a thing is possible, absolutely anything is possible. And from that, the public needs protection. They really do. I've outlined, what I think are aggravating circumstances in this case. There are mitigating circumstances, as I've said. There's things about Ms. Schabusiness regarding her upbringing and what brought her here, the struggles she's had with some mental health issues, and struggling perhaps in the context of those issues with a family who wasn't always as present as they could have been. Those are mitigating sets of circumstances. But
and the
all of
aggravating
those things weigh into what this court has to address. So when I consider what is an appropriate sentence, first, I think the law requires that I at least look at least some of these cases. I take a look at probationary sentences. Those aren't appropriate. They would diminish the severity of the offense. But
I don't think
at this
that's
time,
on
given
the
all
table
the
for you.
factors that I have to consider, it's the decision of this court and the judgment of the law that Ms. Schabusiness be sentenced as follows. As to in 22 CF 363, count one. That's the first degree intentional homicide as a repeater. It's a Class A felony. I'm going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision. I believe that's appropriate in light of the findings that I've already made.
He sentenced her to life without parole. So LWOP, which is what we knew he was going to do. It's just whether it's what he does on the other ones. I'm sure they'll go concurrent, but LWOP.
As far as count two, mutilation of a corpse as a repeater, Class F felony, I'm going to adopt the recommendation of the pre-sentence investigation writer. 7.5 years of initial confinement followed by 4 years of extended supervision. That'll be consecutive to count one. As far as count three,
the judge has strong feelings because when you give somebody LWOP, you could just run everything concurrent. You get 7.5 years on this. At the same time, you're serving life. And he's like, no, consecutive. Life without parole plus, which is more to really send a message and to honor the victim than because she will serve a life sentence and then serve more. So it's yeah, different.
third degree sexual assault as a repeater, Class G felony. I'm going to impose 3 years of initial confinement followed by 4 years of extended supervision. That will be consecutive to count two and
so
count
life
one.
without parole
As
plus
far as
10.
revocation cases, I'm going to impose 1 year of incarceration on each of those counts. Those will run concurrent to the other offenses. I've reviewed, as I've indicated, reviewed both of the pre-sentence investigation reports. There's certainly valuable things in them. I'm going to, as conditions of supervision, I'm going to require no contact with the victim's family, maintain absolute sobriety, complete.
Yes, life without parole means there is no parole. That is just it.
SOT assessment and treatment follow through, obtain and maintain full-time employment. To the extent there's ever supervision, GPS monitoring. I'm going to require an AODA assessment and follow through, psychological evaluation and follow through. The recommendations that are contained in the pre-sentence investigation report submitted by the defense indicates or suggests that there be services engaged in for substance abuse and other mental health issues.
And he's
That's a
ordering
reasonable suggestion. And I think I've encompassed it in the
all of
recommendations that
the
I made, which is
potential
there needs to
she
be
could
compass
get.
evaluation and follow through with any.
Can she appeal for parole?
treatment
Not without this
recommendations
sentence being
proposed.
overturned.
Again, an AODA assessment and follow through and psychological evaluation so that Ms. Schabusiness can get the help that she needs while she serves the sentence. I'm going to
Jordan,
court
acts
costs,
done to the victim after death.
$538 per count. That's a total of $1,614. That'll be the order of the court. I do need to indicate
So that is it.
required to at sentencing that now that Ms. Schabusiness is convicted of a felony, she'll lose her right to vote until it's given back to her by the governor or by state law, and she may not possess a firearm or body armor. Any other record you'd like me to make, Mr. Saunders?
No.
Mr. Freilich, any other record?
Your Honor, the 581 days credit for time served.
Any objection to that?
No, and there's an additional 60 days on the revocation case.
No objection to that.
581 days credit on the first case, and then on the revocation cases, 60 days credit. And that'll be the order of the court. Then, Mr. Freilich, you can go over your client's appeal rights with her.
Yes, I will.
And with that, then, this matter is now concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it. I will say, though, that there have been states that have changed the life without parole rules and have reevaluated them. So is anything ever really forever? I can't tell you. Some states will go back through and reevaluate the life without parole. I think it's a disservice to victims, but they will go back through and reevaluate the life without parole. Not sentences being overturned, not wrongful convictions being overturned, but the state by law changing the sentence when the victims were told somebody was never getting out again, and then changing it and reevaluating, possibly letting people out. So that can happen. But she is sentenced to life without parole. She should not ever be eligible to be free from custody again. So how many years is life without parole? All. So life, we can talk about this real quick. I can make myself a little bit bigger. He's just talking to his client, but until court's done, I'm not going to turn it off. Life generally encompasses some set period of time to life. 15 to life, 20 to life, 25 to life. There is normally some set period to life in a life sentence. And that means after 10, 15, 20, 25, whatever it is, based on the crime and the statute and the sentencing, after that set amount of time, you serve that time. After that set amount of time, you start going before the parole review board to determine if you are eligible for parole. Victims' families should be notified. That is based on statute by state. And then people can get parole. Life without parole is life without parole. So you are in custody for the duration of your life. So life without parole in the States is natural life. Life, in the over-encompassing life, is a set 15-2, 22, 25-2. So life without parole is specific, often referred to as LWOP. So life without parole, that. Y'all, that is the end. Hold on, let's swoop. Taylor Schabusiness has been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for the murder of Shad Therian. Her friend from school, from high school. It's a horrific case. The reason I wanted to cover it is because I wanted to go through the not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect trial with you. NGI is complex law, but NGI, as it meets voluntary intoxication, can be very complex. And I thought the legal understanding was very valuable. And I was really interested in seeing how the judge handled this sentencing. I really liked the judge's demeanor during trial quite a lot. I thought the judge was a very, very thoughtful. A lot of judges are, but not all. Very thoughtful and very thorough. Very, very contemplative. I liked his demeanor. So with all of that, Taylor Schabusiness has been sentenced. We have heard from her family members. We have heard from the victim's father and uncle. And the Schabusiness case is closed. Two cases closed in 1 week. Chat. Who are we? Who are we? We have taken 2 cases off the docket in 1 week. If anything wild comes up in this appeal, and by wild, I mean buck wild. If anything wild comes up in this appeal, I will consider looking at the appeal, but it would need to be far beyond the traditional things that come up in appeal. So the regular things that come up in appeal are you didn't allow in this evidence, you made this ruling wrong or whatever. If something crazy happens, we'll go from there. We have so many other cases to check in on. I have some housekeeping, and then we are going to get to questions. Courthouse Becky Wild. Yes, Kate Manning, Courthouse Becky Wild. That kind of wild. One announcement from me, which if you listen to the podcast on a podcasting feed, you're going to hear about this tomorrow. The Emily Show podcast and the Quick Bits podcast are moving to one feed. I know I should have done this at the beginning, but I didn't, but I should have. So the 2 podcasts are all going to be on the Emily Show feed. For the videos, it stays the same. But for the audio, you will only need one podcast and everything will be on one feed. We are trying to simplify everything. I am leaving the videos on the Quick Bits channel. The way the podcasting feed works versus the way that algorithms here on YouTube work are vastly different. And I think it will be helpful to have all the podcasting stuff on one feed where you can just do all of that. But for the videos, they're going to stay on 2 separate channels. So that is what it is. We are trying to streamline. Witness said, Emily, it's like your business is growing and you need to do some organizing. Yes, that's exactly it. And I get very impulsive and I'm like, oh, we're doing a new podcast. Just put it here. The ADHD sometimes needs a rethink. So Tati update soon. Yes, they're doing they're getting ready for trial in that case. So yes, we will. Appreciate the streamlining. I'm going to try to streamline everything I can. So that is my goal, is to make it easier for me and y'all all at once. So Tati put up a video today. I will take a look. I haven't looked at anything today. Google podcasting is all going on YouTube podcasting soon. Yes. Yes, it is. And you can listen to the podcast here on like YouTube Music and stuff and listen in the background, even if you don't have, premium. So you can play in the background for the podcast. And we're going to be dealing with that. I'm holding on to this because I want to finish my thought, Rachel, and then I want to look at that. We are going to be looking at how that plays out for other playlists here on YouTube. Tati is in Vegas now and put up a video today. Oh, and I see others in the chat saying they're doing depositions. I'm not surprised. Did you hear that the police were called on Britney Spears? People keep calling for wellness checks on her. I don't know if that helps her. I truly don't know. I don't know. We're going to get to questions. So with all of it, I want to just kind of do a wrap up of Schabusiness for y'all before we move into just all the Q&A. I'm sure a lot of you feel like there's no resolution, even though you've watched the sentencing. I know. In criminal cases, and particularly homicide cases, it doesn't always feel like resolution when there is a sentence. There is more like emotional processing to do. Cases are sad. They're heavy. Nothing brings the victim back. Nothing heals the families that are affected. The ripples of what it does to a community aren't undone. The anger, the hurt, the pain, the frustration, all of that doesn't go away just because somebody was sentenced. And there's times when you look at Taylor Schabusiness's life, and now she is in prison for the rest of her life, you're like, yeah. I mean, it doesn't fix anything. It is just somebody who is now locked away out of society for the rest of their life. It doesn't feel like a resolution. It doesn't feel like anything's fixed. It just feels sad. It feels like a tragic waste of life. It feels like a tragic waste of life, everyone's life. And that is why it's so hard to process through these cases. And I saw somebody being like, is the prosecutor going to, are they going to go out and have a drink about winning the trial? They probably have a bunch of trials on their desk that need time after this one. But sometimes there's no celebrating a win because it's not a win. And it doesn't feel like a win. Someone gets locked in prison forever. The victim's family is traumatized. The victim is gone. And it doesn't feel like a win. It feels, especially in a case like this, so avoidable and so sad. Question, do judges have their minds made up about sentencing pre-hearing? It depends on the case. It depends on whether the judge has any discretion or not. It depends on the facts of the case. I think judges always go in with an idea of what they're going to do, but stay open-minded. Mick Linda said, new color for FAQ. Sure. Should we just do something lighter? Where's the pickle? Hold on.
We're going to pickle. Well, I switch colors. There we go. There we go.
Let's see. S. Moore said, for me, it's just a confirmation that we do know who did it. I don't like the unsolved. That's true. The person who committed this crime is in custody. Chat, we are going to pickle. We had to pickle. We needed to pickle. Wisconsin is housing Brooks. The prison system is full. So she could end up elsewhere. That's true. Super ineffective. Have you heard of the hit movie Barbie? Did Taylor like Barbies as a child? Meanwhile, what? That's fair. That is coming in at a time when they were still going through all of the all of the questions about did she play soccer when she was 6 or whatever. Stasea said, EDB, don't feel bad about cheese. Thought it was a restaurant until Saputo was mentioned. Only know them because we have a Saputo factory in my hometown. I was like, look, they're like cheese factory. I'm like, okay, well, there's like a Cheddar's where I live now. I didn't know that existed. There weren't in California. And there's like cheesecake factory and there's like spaghetti factory. And so I was like, maybe cheese factory is a restaurant. Like it sounds like it could be a fondue restaurant. I don't know. The Saputo cheese factory sounds like it could be a full restaurant, but it seemed like she actually worked at the factory. Look, after the Murdaugh monkey farm situation, I never know what I'm getting into with any of this. I'm going to have to ask you guys, how many of us are there? 6,000? I'm going to put up a quick poll, you guys. I'm torn about the podcast for next week. And I'm going to put up a poll and see what y'all think. Since we're here, you guys, this is what we get for hanging for the after hours. I didn't even go to quick. Wait. I didn't even go to FAQ. Hold on. I'm going to do that while I type this out. I have a question. All right. Courthouse Becky on Netflix or Lizzo. I'm torn between two topics for next week's podcast. If I do not cover the topic in the podcast, it will get covered, just not as quickly because I am in Texas next week. So for the podcast next week, here are my two options. Lizzo has responded and has a new lawsuit, but also the Courthouse Becky giving all of the statements on Netflix with regard to Murdaugh and the Murdaugh updates. Does Courthouse Becky make it worse? Does she make the appeal chances go up? What do I think of I never watched the Netflix Murdaugh documentary because I was annoyed that it came out during trial. So I'm going to start a poll with y'all. I'll go put a poll up in Patreon in a little bit. So, do you want my thoughts on the Netflix Murdaugh scandal and whether Becky and Cousin Eddie did everything in or not? Or do we talk about Lizzo? Either way, I will cover both topics. It's just when I cover both topics. Thank y'all. Let's get to some more questions. I wore my fax hat. We are seeing this lawyer on what may be the worst day of his job, but not his fault. He's doing the best he can. This is probably not the worst day of his job. No one has thrown poop at him. He has not been attacked or spit at. This is a hard case, but the thing is, for the defense attorney, these facts aren't close. This wasn't a case where she could have been found not guilty. This isn't a fact-specific case. I think the worst day for a defense attorney, and you guys can ask defense attorneys, I'm not a defense attorney, would be a case that is very circumstantial and they are fighting for their client and they're like, this case, this person should not go to prison and that person is convicted. I think that's a much harder circumstance when they are like, this should not happen, versus Taylor Schabusiness and the police are like, hey, and she's like, I should have taken the head with me. I left it in the bucket. I tried all the different knives and that one was easier. That's not a case where there's much the defense attorney can do and he knows that. So I think that's a little bit different. He knows there's only so much he can do, and he gave a great effort in the defense. I think it's harder for them on cases where there is no confession and it's circumstantial and they are harder cases to win. Those I think probably hit a little bit deeper. So have seen a victim or family member lunge for have a lost in the crowd. I don't know if you are asking if I have seen it or if you have seen it, but yes, I have seen it. Emotions run very, very high. Will she appeal? It'll be automatic. The public defender's office will appeal. The confession is hard. So look, defense work is very specific and it takes people with a heart. That's a lot of deep work for the father to do. I think so. But also we're humans. I don't know if somebody killed my child, if I could ever say, I don't know what I could ever say. But I also can recognize that humans make mistakes. I don't think this intentional homicide was a mistake. It was a choice. But he was coming at it from, we are humans and I have to move on. And I can understand him being like, I have to move on. I don't know if I could stand up in court and ask for mercy for someone who killed my kids. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know. I hope to never be in that circumstance, because I have sat with people in that circumstance and I don't know how they do it. And they all do it differently. The processes of grief with homicide are unique, and really hard. But we've watched Mama Tot walk through it. I don't watch TikTok a lot. I watch a lot of things from TikTok on Instagram. We've watched people in the public eye walk through someone being killed. It's so hard. The chat is pointing out the victim's dad knowing her from childhood probably made a difference. Yeah. Hard. Oh, a kitten. My 4-month-old kitten is sitting on my desk staring at the screen. EDB, you haven't been tranced. Is it the earrings? He's a Norwegian forest cat. Oh, lovely floof. It might be the earrings. My cats are sometimes fascinated with them, but hello to your lovely floof. Handmaid Darcy said, I want a Norwegian forest cat. So much cuddle. All the floof. I think the prosecutor is fantastic. I thought that the whole trial, I thought the prosecutor was great. The prosecutor had a very approachable and leveled demeanor and did not overstate things. There is a lot of room to go in on that case, but I think it's a case where there's like too much to work with. It's like, Your Honor, the defendant said she has zero remorse. What would you like me to do? There was no need for rage. The case speaks for itself because the case is so bad it like makes people calm. The case is so bad that everyone has just like taken it down a few notches. Would it be appropriate to send a letter to this defense attorney complimenting his efforts, or is that inappropriate? JP, I imagine every attorney has their own feelings. I do often think that attorneys do not get told, hey, I saw you do your job and I thought you did a good job. They probably have a public facing email. If you don't send it to them, their public defender's office probably has a public facing email. Send it to the public defender, to their boss, and say, hey, I thought this lawyer did a tremendous job and I appreciate the way they represented their client and represented the system and represented themselves. Yes, I had members of the public send letters to my bosses. It was always appreciated. These poor defense attorneys, I can't imagine. This is their job. And it seemed like this defense attorney connected with Taylor Schabusiness and was able to at least work with her and talk to her. And that is probably more than any other defense attorney has been able to do. And that is a job well done. Please tell me you intended the pun when you said we wrapped up Schabusiness. Sorry, I have to try to lighten things up. I didn't. But I see it now that you said it, music to my soul. But I did not. I wasn't even thinking. Time to put the kiddos to bed. I know we streamed late tonight. It kind of felt good. It felt nice. But now as the sun's going down and we've streamed for 3.5 hours, it's almost time to wrap and go eat dinner and then do all the things tomorrow. Tati said that she is doing to Las Vegas for depots. That it's a weird experience doing depots. My dad's degree was organic chem. Chemists are so smart. They're scary. Yes, I flunked organic chem. I never took organic chem. My kid loves chemistry. My oldest loves chemistry. The Great Big Geek heads up that National Alert is going out on October 4th, like National Amber Alert, but it is a test. I forgot about it until today and figured I would remind everybody. That is helpful. I always forgot, like when we did the big earthquake drills. I always forgot about that. You say Pokemon Go sleep. I hear be at Scary Island. Travis hates. Do I have it in here? Travis hates the Pokemon Go sleep. Hold on. I think it's in my bag. Do I carry it with me in my bag? Yes. You never know when you might need to poke. That it'll be fine. You never know when you might need to Pokemon, and it will auto catch in Pokemon Go. But I played this. Where did I play this? Did I play it for Rob and Runkle? I don't remember what stream I was on when I played it. Thank you, Rob, for the record. But it sings. Nope, no, it doesn't. Today it's like, fuck you, Emily. I don't perform on command. I'm not doing the Pikachu voice. I'm doing nothing. Let's see if we can force it to do what I want it to do. Probably not. Outside the Box got my app, YouTube, Patreon notifications all together. Was literally ding, 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 ding. I love it. All right, hold on. We're going to voice change it. It's better with the voice changer. So, the Pokemon Go Sleep is a sleep tracker that gamifies sleep, but it will also auto catch Pokemon if you are playing Pokemon Go. But yes, it sings Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and Pikachu. Travis thinks it's cursed. And the other night, I need you to wake up, Pikachu. The other night he was feeding the cats, and I was setting this for bed when it starts to sing. And as I was walking past where he's feeding the cats, he's like, "What in the world is that?" It's like, sorry. And then I had to admit to my kid that I was playing Pokemon Go Sleep and was obsessed with it. And so he's like, "You're getting competitive about sleep." And I'm like, I'm getting very competitive about sleep. He hates it. When I went camping with Judge Abby, she was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I was like, "Okay, so there's something you need to know about me." I'm obsessed. I have not found any fucking pink shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Sleep. I'm pissed because everybody I watch who does Pokemon content, the way I'm tempted sometimes to just be like, why am I not doing Pokemon content? But the way I'm jealous of people getting all of the shinies. I'll tell Travis that you guys absolutely agree. Okay, here's the thing. Not sponsored by Pokemon Sleep, but you can use your phone to also track your sleep and see if you like it. You do not have to use the Pokemon Go plus thing, though it's really fun and it's very cute. But you can track your sleep in the app with the phone. So there's that. It's fun. I love it. I'm a Pokemon Go addict. I love it. Were there any Pokemon in the forest? Lots, but I didn't have cell reception, so I had to wait until I got cell reception to play. So anyway, that's amazing. Got a shiny Charmeleon. You guys are great. I'm gonna have to put up another thing if you guys want to find friends in the community and Pokemon Go Sleep together. I'll have to put up another. I'll have to put up another one. So I get tempted. I get very, very tempted. as this. There's something you need to know about me or not, or do you want to hear it before you camp with someone? It's fair. It wasn't that I snore, it was that I need to sleep with my Pokeball. Donna C had a Furby callback. Where did it go? I didn't see it pull up on this. Wait, there. I will never forget the Furby singing "na na na" just before it was run over by the bulldozer. Furbies were crazy. My beloved cat Albus, who passed before we moved to Tennessee at a little over 17 years old, hated the fucking Furby. I had a Furby. She hated it. Thought it was absolutely demonic and possessed. Hated it the most. Hated it. How often do Pokemon think of the Roman Empire? I have to think about this. Do different Pokemon think of it more? I imagine rock type and fighting type think of it more than other types. I got a shiny Charmander in Ocean City, Maryland. Was it during Charmander Community Day? I got a number of them. The Furbies were scary. I like Tamagotchi. Pokemon Go Sleep feels very much like Tamagotchi to me. So, somebody made a comment. In the comment section on one of the videos that was like, "This is peak ADHD for Emily. Books flights to the wrong city and state. Remembers to feed her Snorlax." And I'm like, yeah, yep, that's absolutely right. Willow, glad to see you. I missed a lot of lives since starting a new job. Chevy, I know we got that at the beginning. I'm glad that you're here. I'm going to make sure we didn't miss anything just for the cursed voices. The light is annoying though. The light is interesting. When you wake it up, it does a whole little like dance thing. I don't know if it will, but it is not. I need to plug it in and like reset it because it was cranky last night. It was like, you woke up at 5:15 a.m. I'm like, the fuck I did. The fuck I woke up at 8:15 a.m. You know I didn't. Or 5:15 a.m. You know I didn't. Loud. Rebecca Fitzgerald, thank you for sharing your childhood trauma in the chat. Someone stole my shiny Charizard when I was 9. Is it too late to sue for emotional damage? No, not legal advice. I'm emotionally damaged that somebody stole what was probably an original series shiny Charizard. Are you sure? Have you checked to make sure that one of the Paul brothers doesn't have it? I'm just putting that out there. Do either of the Paul brothers have your shiny Charizard? I just need to know. All right. Chat. I saw everybody streaming. I know Rob was going to be streaming his wrap up, so I need to get going because Rob probably started more than 30 minutes ago. I didn't mean to intrude on the night crew, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to, and it's also been 3.5 hours. I'm going to wrap up. Just wanted to say you have a fantastic presence on stream. Thank you. And really do seem enthused about the proceedings. I don't cover stuff I don't like. Somebody asked and asked repeatedly, kind of what my advice is for, yes, Magdalena, please end the poll. What my advice is for being a content creator or being a streamer. And I'm like, you need to create content that you like talking about all the time. Like all the time. So if there is something you are kind of obsessed with and you fucking love it the most and you want to talk about it for 3, 5, 10 years coming, do that. Like Mark Rober loves the shit that he does. I love the shit that I do. So, and I get to create it. If there is shit that I hate covering, anything to do with politics, I won't cover it. I've learned that. I was like, I could probably help explain this, but also so can 30 other people. So does talking about this make me want to put my brain on ice for a few days? Yes. Okay, great. We're not talking about it. So, I try to bring in the stuff that I'm nerdy about and share it with y'all. Because we can talk about all kinds of law in the cases that we're covering. I love it. You guys are like, Mark Rober, the glitter bomb package, right? Yes, that guy. That guy who's now like friends with Jennifer Aniston or something. I don't know. It's crazy. So that stuff. Sasika, can't do the Maya case. I got the gist from Natalie, but I can't do the actual trial. Me neither. Nope. Rob's doing wrap-ups. And that's fantastic. Okay, you guys, Courthouse Becky is on the podcast next week. The Squirrel Olympics guy, yes. But he picked the thing that was, and I think the reason I like Mark Rober so much is he picked the thing he did as a professional and made it fun and then brought it to the internet. I don't think he gets shaded by reporters though for like, I don't know, he used to work at NASA and now he's a content creator. Somehow people do that to the lawyers. They're like, well, they're not like real at what they do anymore. I'm like, nobody shades Mark Rober. It's because he's so good at what he does. So I don't cover stuff that I don't want to cover. And I don't cover stuff that collectively we can't mostly have fun with. Not every day are we covering a trial like Schabusiness. It's too heavy. It's too sad. And that even though it resolves at the end, it doesn't feel resolved emotionally a lot of the time, which is why we need to intersperse it with food court. And things that are ridiculous, like the sidebars and Ben Chu actually calling Spiegel a wackadoodle to Judge A. We need to do all of that. So we need to do all different kinds of things. And that's what it is. So Danielle Clark, Emily is the Mark Rober of law. That's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, other than, oh my God. No, that's probably the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. I was like, there's other things, but that is very sweet. All right, let's see. Tamagotchi, my daughters love them. I love them too. The Maya trial is a lot. It is. It's why I'm not covering it. I knew I couldn't. When's the next food court? I don't know. They might be scared of the glitter and fart spray. I would love that so much. I like the balance too, because we need it. We need some law that we can make fun of. We need, every now and then we need like a chat GPT lawyer to do something so fucking ridiculous. We can just sit here on the internet and be like, what? I think BitBoy Crypto is our new chat GPT lawyer for the moment. The things that are captivating my attention right now. There is one that is going to take me a little while to put together because it's big. But that will be a podcast. It is big. And I'm real excited about it. So I can't wait to drag you all into a nerdiness little hole for like an hour of a podcast. I am needing to know what's going on with the breakdown of the BitBoy Crypto business. I'm fascinated by that. It's going to be me at Vid Summit. It's going to be like, yeah, but legalese is hard, bro. Are you following the BitBoy Crypto stuff? that obsessed and fascinated, like invested. Very invested in what the judge is going to do in Idaho. Very invested in the Idaho defamation case. Very invested in the Idaho defamation case. So those are the things kind of top of mind. We need a Tati, like I'm listing out the things that are coming up in future live streams. We need a Tati update as they're getting ready for trial and things like that. So with all of that, you guys, it's time to say goodnight. Let's see. It needs to be reset. All right. And on that, legalese is so hard. Grass Folk said, I thought the Idaho TikTok went away. No. The TikTokers' counterclaims against the professor went away, but the professor is still suing for defamation unless the professor dropped the case in like the last week, which if that's the case, I am not aware of it and think I would have seen it. With all of it, it is time to go. Chat, you are the best. You are bae. I will miss you on the lives next week. Make sure you have the app. So if I, which I likely will, spontaneously decide to go live next week, will probably happen. I want to try out the vertical live streaming on YouTube, so it probably won't stay up. And there will be other lawyers at Vid Summit. And if I run into them, I might be like, we have to get on the phones and live stream. So make sure you have the Law Nerd app, because at some point I will spontaneously go live. It's going to happen. Even if it's like, if I can talk Mr. Beast into like a foosball game or something, I'll stream that as well. So with all of that, make sure you download the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. I am not streaming next week. I am out of town for a conference. There will be a new podcast episode on Wednesday. With all of that, thank you so much. You are the best. Mods, thank you for the late night ride. I appreciate you guys rearranging schedules to be here with me. Law Nerds, same to you. I will see you soon. Bye, everybody. You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.